The shadows of two empires. Imagine a secret message tucked inside the lining of a coat, a message that would awaken a forgotten alliance, expose a hidden betrayal, and help redefine the map of the modern world. Long before satellites, spies, and cyber warfare, history balanced on handwritten notes, invisible ink, and the courage of ordinary people whose names the world rarely remembers. Today, we follow one of those forgotten stories, one that begins in the cracked streets of 19th century Istanbul and stretches all the way to the young, rising United States. Chapter 1. The Man with the Torn Note. The winter wind rolled down the Bosphorus like a living creature, cold, heavy, and wet, carrying with it the sounds of the waking Ottoman capital. Fishermen shouted over the snapping sails of their early morning boats. The call to prayer echoed from the minarets, and the thud of wooden carts announced that the bazaars were opening for business. But Elias Turner heard none of it. An American by birth and an accidental traveler by fate, he stood alone on the Galata Bridge, staring at the torn scrap of paper clutched in his gloved hand. The ink was smudged from snow. The edges were ripped as if someone either written it in haste or died trying to protect it. Elias could still remember the trembling voice of the dying man who pressed it into his palm. "Take it to the American legation. Don't let them find the rest of it. History depends on it." Then the man collapsed, blood spilling onto the stone street. That was only 2 hours ago. Now Elias, a former clerk who had been traveling across Europe in search of adventure, realized he had found far more than he wanted. The torn note held only 6 legible words. Treaty, Russian envoy, midnight, fire, warehouse. It made no sense to him, but someone clearly thought it mattered enough to kill for it. A burst of shouting snapped Elias back to the present. 2 Ottoman guards were running along the waterfront, their torches swaying, their voices sharp and urgent. Behind them, half hidden in the fog, 2 men in black coats moved silently, purposefully, searching. Elias slipped the note into his coat and stepped off the bridge. He needed answers, and the only man in the city who might have them was Henry Sanford, the American chargé d'affaires. A man rumored to have friends in every port, secrets in every cabinet, and enemies in every empire. The American Legation Para-District. The legation building stood on a hill overlooking the harbor, 3 stories of pale stone, iron balconies, and quiet authority. A brass plaque near the door read, United States Legation, Constantinople. The guard knew Elias, at least by face. "Mr. Turner, you're early for your appointment." "I don't have an appointment," Elias said, lowering his voice, "but I bring something urgent for Mr. Sanford." His tone must have carried a certain seriousness because the guard's expression tightened. "Come inside, quickly." He was led up a narrow staircase to the top floor office where Henry Sanford sat surrounded by maps, letters, and half-finished diplomatic reports. Sanford looked up. "Mr. Turner, what trouble have you wandered into this time?" They had met only 3 nights before when Elias attended a reception hosted by the legation. Sanford had called him young, curious, and very likely to attract chaos. Elias had laughed then. Now the words felt like a prophecy. Elias handed him the torn note. Sanford read it once, then again. When he finally looked up, his face was grave. "Where did you get this?" "A man shoved it into my hand near the spice market. He was bleeding. Someone had stabbed him." Sanford rolls from his desk. Do you know what this is? I assume something dangerous. Dangerous, Sanford repeated, is too light a word. He walked to a locked cabinet, removed a leather-bound folder, and laid it gently on the desk. Inside were copies of diplomatic messages from the United States, Britain, France, and the Ottoman Empire. Sanford tapped a map with his finger. Russia has been pressing the Ottomans for a new treaty, something that would give them access to warm water ports and expand their influence over the Black Sea. If that happens, the balance of power changes, not just here, but globally. The British would revolt, the French would panic, and the United States, well, we're young but not blind. Elias swallowed. And this note? It suggests someone intends to interfere with the treaty negotiations or destroy them tonight at a warehouse with fire. Elias felt a chill. So what do we do? We find the other half of the message, Sanford said, snapping the folder shut, before the Russians, Ottomans, or those men who killed your informant. The search begins. Sanford dispatched 2 guards to retrieve supplies while he opened a hidden drawer beneath his desk. He pulled out 3 items: a small revolver, a folded map of the city's old shipping district, and a wax-sealed envelope marked Eagle Cipher. Elias pointed to the seal. What's in there? Instructions. The shadows of 2 empires. Imagine a secret message tucked inside the lining of a coat, a message that would awaken a forgotten alliance, expose a hidden betrayal, and help redefine the map of the modern world. Long before satellites, spies, and cyber warfare, history balanced on handwritten notes, invisible ink, and the courage of ordinary people whose names the world rarely remembers. Today, we follow one of those forgotten stories, one that begins in the cracked streets of 19th century Istanbul and stretches all the way to the young, rising United States. Chapter 1. The Man with the Torn Note. The winter wind rolled down the Bosporus like a living creature, cold, heavy, and wet, carrying with it the sounds of the waking Ottoman capital. Fishermen shouted over the snapping sails of their early morning boats. The call to prayer echoed from the minarets, and the thud of wooden carts announced that the bazaars were opening for business. But Elias Turner heard none of it. An American by birth and an accidental traveler by fate, he stood alone on the Galata Bridge, staring at the torn scrap of paper clutched in his gloved hand. The ink was smudged from snow. The edges were ripped as if someone had either written it in haste or died trying to protect it. Elias could still remember the trembling voice of the dying man who pressed it into his palm. Take it to the American legation. Don't let them find the rest. History depends on it. Then the man collapsed, blood spilling onto the stone street. That was only 2 hours ago. Now, Elias, a former clerk who had been traveling across Europe in search of adventure, realized he had found far more than he wanted. The torn note held only 6 legible words: treaty, Russian envoy, midnight, fire, warehouse. It made no sense to him, but someone clearly thought it mattered enough to kill for it. A burst of shouting snapped Elias back to the present. 2 Ottoman guards were running along the waterfront, their torches swaying, their voices sharp and urgent. Behind them, half hidden in the fog, 2 men in black coats moved silently, purposefully, searching. Elias slipped the note into his coat and stepped off the bridge. He needed answers. And the only man in the city who might have them was Henry Sanford, the American chargé d'affaires, a man rumored to have friends in every port, secrets in every cabinet, and enemies in every empire. The American Legation, Para District. The legation building stood on a hill overlooking the harbor. 3 stories of pale stone, iron balconies, and quiet authority. A brass plaque near the door read, United States Legation, Constantinople. The guard knew Elias, at least by face. Mr. Turner, you're early for your appointment. I don't have an appointment, Elias said, lowering his voice. But I bring something urgent from Mr. Sanford. His tone must have carried a certain seriousness because the guard's expression tightened. Come inside, quickly. Elias was led up a narrow staircase to the top floor office where Henry Sanford sat surrounded by maps, letters, and half-finished diplomatic reports. Sanford looked up. Mr. Turner, what trouble have you wandered into this time? They had met only 3 nights before, when Elias attended a reception hosted by the legation. Sanford had called him young, curious, and very likely to attract chaos. Elias had laughed then. Now the words felt like a prophecy. Elias handed him the torn note. Sanford read it once, then again. When he finally looked up, his face was grave. Where did you get this? A man shoved it into my hands near the spice market. He was bleeding. Someone had stabbed him. Sanford rose from his desk. Do you know what this is? I assume something dangerous. Dangerous, Sanford repeated, is too light a word. He walked to a locked cabinet, removed a leather-bound folder, and laid it gently on the desk. Inside were copies of diplomatic messages from the United States, Britain, France, and the Ottoman Empire. Sanford tapped a map with his finger. Russia has been pressing the Ottomans for a new treaty, something that would give them access to warm water ports and expand their influence over the Black Sea. If that happens, the balance of power changes, not just here, but globally. The British would revolt, the French would panic, and the United States, well, we're young but not blind. Elias swallowed. And this note? It suggests someone intends to interfere with the treaty negotiations or destroy them tonight at a warehouse with fire. Elias felt a chill. So what do we do? We find the other half of the message, Sanford said, snapping the folder shut, before the Russians, the Ottomans, or those men who killed your informant do. The search begins. Sanford dispatched 2 guards to retrieve supplies while he opened a hidden drawer beneath his desk. He pulled out 3 items: a small revolver, a folded map of the city's old shipping district, and a wax-sealed envelope marked Eagle Cipher. Elias pointed to the seal. What's in there? Instructions, Sanford said. From Washington. For what? For what to do if this treaty is tampered with. The weight in those words settled like lead. Sanford tucked the envelope into his coat and motioned to Elias. We leave now. The warehouse district near midnight. They reached the warehouse district under a moon half hidden by clouds. The sea lapped quietly against the piers, but the city behind them hummed with life. Caravans unloading spices, merchants haggling, sailors singing drunken songs that echoed off stone walls. The warehouse marked on the note stood apart from the others. Its wooden planks were old, its windows cracked and patched with iron. A single lantern flickered above the door. Sanford whispered, "Stay close and stay silent." They approached the front door. A shadow moved inside. Sanford froze. Voices drifted out, low, sharp, speaking Russian. Elias's stomach tightened. Sanford leaned in. If Russian agents are here at midnight,
It means the treaty is being altered or destroyed right now. Russia gains everything in chaos. Before Elias could respond, the warehouse door creaked open. A man stepped out, tall, heavy coat, scar across his cheek. His eyes locked on Elias, then on Sanford. Recognition flared. He reached for a pistol. Sanford shoved Elias behind a crate. Gunfire exploded. The lantern swung, shadow slicing across the snow. Elias crawled toward the side entrance while Sanford exchanged shots with the Russian. 2 more men burst out from inside. Elias pushed hard on the side door. It swung open. Inside, he saw something that made him stop cold. A table, covered in documents, maps of the Black Sea, diplomatic seals from the Ottoman palace, Russian cipher sheets, and at the center of the table, the other half of the torn message. Elias sprinted for it. A Russian agent lunged. Elias grabbed the note and rolled beneath the table just as the man swung a dagger down, splintering the wood. He crawled out the opposite side, gasping for breath. Outside, Sanford shouted, "Turner, run!" Elias bolted toward him, shoving the new fragment into Sanford's hand. Sanford read the complete message. His face went white. Then he whispered the words that would change Elias's fate forever. This isn't about the treaty at all. It's about the Americans. Gunfire roared behind them as they fled into the frozen night.
Chapter 2. The Hidden Treaty. The night did not soften as Elias and Sanford ran. The cold carved at their faces, and the snow fell in sharp, stinging flakes that blurred the dark edges of the city. The gunshots behind them grew faint, though the echo of danger never left their ears. Sanford clutched the 2 fused halves of the torn message as he led Elias down a narrow alleyway between shuttered shops. When he finally stopped, his breath leaving clouds in the air, he pressed his back against a stone wall and unfolded the note beneath the dim glow of a street lantern. Elias leaned close. The message, now whole, read, "American clause attached. Russian envoy will strike before signature. Midnight fire to hide revision." Elias felt a sick twist in his stomach. American clause? You said this had nothing to do with the treaty itself. Sanford nodded slowly, eyes scanning the handwriting again and again. Yes, the Russian-Ottoman treaty has been discussed for months, but the United States, he paused, we are technically uninvolved. Then why would an American clause exist? That, Sanford said, is the question that may change all 3 empires. He folded the note and tucked it inside his coat. Then he scanned the alley, ensuring no shadows moved where they shouldn't. Turner, listen to me carefully. What we stumbled into tonight is no accident. Russia does not act without a reason, and the Ottoman Empire, weak though it is, still controls the most important waters in the world. The straits are everything. Whoever controls them controls trade, influence, and war. And America? Elias whispered. We are young, but growing. A connection between us and this treaty suggests someone, either in Washington or in Constantinople, intended to use our neutrality as a shield. Meaning, Sanford said with a grim smile. Someone is using America to get away with something. Elias exhaled shakily. The snowflakes clung to his hair. His boots felt heavy from running, but adrenaline kept him upright. What do we do now? Sanford straightened. We return to the legation. We examine every diplomatic message sent from Washington in the last 3 months. If there is an American clause, it was either hidden or forged. And the Russians?
They'll be sweeping the district by now. We cannot be seen in the open. Elias followed him through the twisting side streets. Lanterns flickered overhead. Dogs barked in the distance. The fog from the Bosphorus rolled between buildings like ghostly waves. After several tense minutes, they reached a wider street, a path of cobblestones lit by oil lamps. Across it, the faint hum of nightlife drifted from the Para district. Music from taverns, laughter from travelers, the clatter of carriage wheels. They crossed quickly. Sanford spoke without looking at Elias. "You did well in the warehouse. I almost got stabbed. And you lived," Sanford said dryly. "Most people do not get that luxury on their first encounter." Elias let out a shaky laugh. Was that supposed to be comforting? No, just truthful. The legation again, but not as they left it. The guards at the U.S. legation recognized Sanford instantly and moved to open the gate. But Sanford raised a hand. Not yet. Something is off. Elias felt the hair rise on his neck. "What is it?" Sanford pointed at a lamp mounted above the entrance. The flame flickered unnaturally. "That lamp," Sanford whispered, "is lit only when all the senior staff are asleep. It's a signal, a quiet one." "Meaning someone is inside who shouldn't be?" Sanford nodded. "Follow me. Stay low." They moved silently along the outer wall until they reached a side entrance. Sanford produced a small iron key, not the official one, but a personal duplicate he kept for emergencies. He turned it slowly in the lock. Inside, the hallway was dark, except for faint light spilling from Sanford's office upstairs. A soft rustling sound echoed from within. Sanford signaled Elias to stay behind him as he climbed the stairs one careful step at a time. Elias followed, his heart slamming against his ribs. As they approached the landing, Sanford drew his revolver. He kicked the door open. Two men froze inside the office, Ottoman uniforms. One held a stack of documents, the other had his hand in the drawer where Sanford kept his cipher tools. Both stared back at Sanford and Elias like startled wolves. "Put the documents down," Sanford ordered, slowly. One of the Ottomans smirked. "You Americans have a habit of arriving at inconvenient moments." He tossed the papers into the air. The other drew a pistol. Sanford fired first.
The shot cracked through the room, smoke filling the air. The Ottoman staggered back, clutching his shoulder. The second guard lunged at Elias with surprising speed. Elias stumbled backward, but caught the man's arm before the dagger could reach him. They tumbled across the floor, rolling, knocking over a chair. Elias smelled sweat and iron. The dagger flashed again. Sanford fired a second shot into the ceiling. "Enough!" The Ottoman froze. Elias shoved him away and scrambled to his feet. The wounded guard muttered in Turkish, "We warned him. We warned the American envoy." Sanford stepped forward. "Warned who?" "The one who works for you." Elias blinked. "What?" But the guard said no more. They retreated slowly toward the window, leapt, dropping down onto the balcony roof below, then disappearing into the back alley before Sanford or Elias could reach the sill. Sanford exhaled, anger tightening his jaw. Elias whispered, "What did he mean? Someone in the legation works against us?" Sanford didn't answer. He moved quickly to the documents that had been scattered across the floor. Most were simple reports, trade notes, letters from Washington, routine diplomacy. But one document, Elias immediately noticed, was not routine. A single sheet of parchment, thinner than the others, marked with a faint watermark of the U.S. State Department.
and stamped with an Ottoman seal on the lower corner. Sanford picked it up with a trembling hand. "Oh no," he breathed. "What is it?" Elias asked. Sanford turned the page so Elias could see. Written across the top in elegant, formal script were the words, "Supplementary Article to the Russell Ottoman Accord, approved by United States Envoy." Elias felt the blood drain from his face. "Approved by you?" he whispered. "No," Sanford growled, "and that is precisely the problem." He tapped the signature at the bottom. It read, "Henry Sanford, authorized representative of the United States." "But I never signed anything," Sanford said. "This is a forgery." "And the American clause?" Sanford scanned the article. "The United States shall maintain neutral passage rights and extend limited naval support to the Ottoman fleet during wartime, provided said fleet does not obstruct American commercial vessels." Elias frowned. "That doesn't sound dangerous." Sanford slammed the paper on the desk. "It is catastrophic. America does not take sides between European empires. If Washington saw this, they would assume I had pledged American naval involvement without authorization. It would destroy my career. Worse, it could drag the United States into a conflict we are not prepared for." Elias swallowed. "So, someone forged your signature to push America into a war? Or to make it appear I have committed treason," Sanford muttered. "Either way, someone wanted this buried tonight." "The fire?" Sanford nodded. The Russians planned to burn the warehouse not merely to destroy the treaty, but to hide this supplementary article. The Ottomans likely didn't know about it. Elias's pulse quickened. "Who would forge your signature?" Sanford's expression darkened. "That is the question of the century, and the answer is either in this legation or watching us right now." The secret compartment. Sanford tore open the desk drawer the Ottoman guard had been searching for. He felt beneath the wooden base until he found a small latch. A hidden compartment slid open. Elias leaned closer, fascinated. "What is that?" "Where I keep what I trust no one else with." Inside lay 2 wax-sealed envelopes, a silver signet ring, a tiny ledger filled with codes, and a letter addressed to Sanford in a hand Elias didn't recognize. Sanford opened the letter quickly, eyes darting across the page. His face went pale. "What does it say?" Elias asked. He handed it to Elias. The letter read, "Henry, they know. Do not trust anyone in the legation. The clause was never meant for your eyes. The fire is only the first step. Someone among you helped craft the forgery, and he has powerful friends. Meet me at the old lighthouse at dawn. A friend." Elias read it twice. "A friend? Who could this be?" "I don't know," Sanford said, "but I trust so few I can count them on one hand, and most of those are in Washington." Elias stared at the letter again. "Do we go?" Sanford hesitated only a moment. "Yes, but first, we need to secure everything here before whoever planted the forged treaty returns." An unsettling discovery. As they gathered documents, Elias noticed a faint draft near the wall. "Sir, what's this?" He touched a panel of wood. It felt loose. Sanford crossed the room. "That shouldn't be there." Together, they pulled the panel aside. Behind it was a narrow cavity, and inside that cavity, a small parchment roll tied with crimson string. Sanford untied it. Both men stared. It was a second supplementary article, similar in format to the one the Ottomans tried to steal, but this one carried a seal Elias had never seen.
Not Ottoman, not Russian, not American. A seal shaped like a coiled serpent. "What is that?" Elias whispered. Sanford's face hardened. "It is the mark of a society that officially does not exist." "A secret society?" "Not a small one," Sanford said. "A powerful one, operating across borders. Some say they serve no empire, only influence." "And their goal?" Sanford stared at the serpent seal for a long moment. "To shape treaties without nations knowing." Elias exhaled shakily. "So this is bigger than Russia, bigger than the Ottomans?" "Yes, and bigger than the United States." Sanford rolled the parchment carefully. "Turner, tonight we discovered that history is being rewritten in the shadows. The lighthouse awaits." Sanford locked everything inside his hidden compartment, both forged and genuine documents, then sealed it shut. He extinguished the lamp, motioned for Elias to follow, and whispered, "At dawn, we go to the old lighthouse." "And if it's a trap?" Elias asked. Sanford's jaw tightened. "Then we will be prepared." He tucked the revolver into his coat. "Turner, I'm truly sorry you were caught in this." Elias shook his head. "No, I chose adventure. I just didn't expect adventure to choose me back." Sanford allowed himself a small smile. Tonight was only the beginning. They stepped into the freezing night. The sky above Constantinople was black as ink, not a star in sight. But far across the water, just visible through the swirling snow, a faint light pulsed from the direction of the old lighthouse. Slow, rhythmic, deliberate. A signal, or a warning. Elias felt another shiver, not from the cold, but from the sense that he and Sanford were about to confront something older, deeper, and far more dangerous than any empire. Chapter 3. The Fire of Pera. Elias barely slept. Dawn crept slowly over the rooftops of Constantinople, staining the sky with pale streaks of gold and rose. But the beauty of the morning did nothing to ease the weight of the night before. The Russians, the forged treaty, the mysterious serpent seal, and the letter calling Sanford to the old lighthouse. By the time the sun broke across the Bosphorus, Elias is already dressed, pacing the hallway outside Sanford's quarters. When Sanford finally emerged, he was fastening the last buckle on his coat and tucking a folded map into an inner pocket. "You're early," he said, though his tone suggested he expected nothing less. "I couldn't sleep." "Good. Fear keeps a man alert." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Comforting." Sanford smirked. "Only the truth." He motioned for Elias to follow. They descended the stairs quietly. Most of the legation staff were not awake yet. A few junior clerks dozed in chairs in the corner room. Someone nearby was stirring a pot of coffee, the aroma drifting through the cold air. Elias paused near the front door. "Do you think the men from last night will return?" Sanford considered. "If they knew what we found, yes, but they don't. They only know we escaped the warehouse and surprised their infiltration effort. They will assume we are hiding, not chasing the truth." "And aren't we supposed to be hiding?" Sanford opened the door. "You took the wrong job if you wanted safety. Come." The journey to the old lighthouse. The old lighthouse stood on the far edge of the Bosphorus, near a stretch of rocky coastline where the sea crashed violently against ancient stone. Once it bided Ottoman warships on moonless nights, now it was mostly abandoned, visited only by fishermen, children looking for adventure, and, apparently, secret informants warning American diplomats about forged treaties. By the time the sun broke across the Bosphorus, Elias was already dressed, pacing the hallway outside Sanford's quarters. When Sanford finally emerged, he was fastening the last buckle on his coat and tucking a folded map into an inner pocket. You're early, he said, though his tone suggested he expected nothing less. I couldn't sleep. Good. Fear keeps a man alert. Elias raised an eyebrow. Comforting. Sanford smirked. Only the truth. He motioned for Elias to follow. They descended the stairs quietly. Most of the legation staff were not awake yet. A few junior clerks dozed in chairs in the corner room. Someone nearby was stirring a pot of coffee, the aroma drifting through the cold air. Elias paused near the front door. Do you think the men from last night will return? Sanford considered. If they knew what we found, yes, but they don't. They only know we escaped the warehouse and surprised their infiltration effort. They will assume we are hiding, not chasing the truth. And aren't we supposed to be hiding? Sanford opened the door. You took the wrong job if you wanted safety. Come. The journey to the old lighthouse. The old lighthouse stood on the far edge of the Bosphorus, near a stretch of rocky coastline where the sea crashed violently against ancient stone. Once it guided Ottoman warships on moonless nights. Now it was mostly abandoned, visited only by fishermen, children looking for adventure, and, apparently, secret informants warning American diplomats about forged treaties. The city was waking by the time Elias and Sanford reached the waterfront. Vendors were setting up their stalls, spreading spices, silks, and dried figs across wooden tables. The salty wind carried the cries of gulls overhead. Sanford hired a small fishing boat for the journey across the water. The fisherman, an older man with sun-beaten skin, squinted at them. Strange time to cross, he muttered. Storm coming. Sanford placed a coin in his hand. We won't be long. The man shrugged and motioned for them to board. As the boat cut through the waves, Elias watched the city drift away, its domes, minarets, and rooftops forming a silhouette against the brightening sky. This letter, Elias said over the wind. Do you really believe it came from a friend? Trust is rare in diplomacy. I trust the handwriting. I trust the urgency. But the intention, that remains to be seen. And the serpent seal? Sanford's expression darkened again. There were whispers in Washington, even before I left, of an organization that manipulated negotiations across continents. They never claimed land, only influence. Always hidden, always watching. Like a shadow government? No, more like a shadow of many governments. Elias shivered, though the wind was not entirely to blame. Before he could ask more, the boat veered toward the coast. The old lighthouse rose from the rocks, tall, weathered, its top cracked from decades of storms. Moss and seaweed clung to the base where the waves crashed. Sanford stepped off the boat first. Stay close and watch for anyone following.
The lighthouse meeting. Inside the lighthouse, it was cold and dark. The circular stairs wound upward, disappearing into shadows. A faint click echoed from above. Sanford raised his revolver immediately. Show yourself, he called. Footsteps descended slowly. A figure emerged from the darkness. A man in his late 40s, tall, sharply dressed in European attire,
but with the unmistakable bearing of someone accustomed to danger. His hair was graying at the temples, and he walked with the confidence of a soldier and the subtlety of a diplomat. "Henry Sanford," the man said with a calm smile. "I feared you would not come." Sanford exhaled. "Good Lord, Adrian Locke." Elias blinked. "You know him?" Sanford nodded sharply. "Former attaché to the British Embassy in Athens. Worked intelligence for a time. Officially retired." Locke smirked. "Officially retired. Unofficially, the world never seems to let me rest." "And the letter?" Sanford asked. "I wrote it." Locke stepped down the last stair and glanced toward the doorway behind them. "We must speak quickly. The Russians swept the northern district last night. They know about the torn message." "And what do you know?" Sanford demanded. Locke's eyes flicked to Elias. "More than I am comfortable saying in front of a civilian." Elias bristled, but Sanford spoke first. "He stays. He saved my life last night." Locke studied Elias for a moment, then nodded. "Very well, but what I am about to reveal cannot leave this lighthouse." Sanford crossed his arms. "Speak." Locke withdrew a small leather folio from inside his coat. Inside was a single page, thin, delicate, marked with the same serpent seal they had found in the hidden compartment. Elias stepped closer. "Another supplementary article?" Locke nodded. "This is the original, the one that came before the forged version." Sanford's eyes narrowed. "What does it say?" He handed it to him. In elegant script, the document declared, "The United States shall serve as a neutral guarantor for disputes between Russia and the Ottoman Empire. In exchange, American influence shall extend to strategic maritime routes within the Mediterranean." Elias inhaled sharply. That sounds like something the U.S. government would want, doesn't it?" Locke smiled grimly. "Exactly. And that is why it is so dangerous." Sanford looked pale. "This would have tied the newborn American Navy to two ancient empires. It would have forced us into their conflicts for decades." Locke nodded precisely. "And someone tried to make it real without your government's consent. But Russia wants dominance. Why forge a version of the clause that helps America?" Locke's eyes hardened. "Because the serpent seal does not serve Russia, nor the Ottomans, nor America." "Oh God," Sanford whispered. "They played every side." Locke tapped the page. "This society, if one dares call it that, planned to use the United States as leverage, to make the Ottomans trust American neutrality, to make Russia accept American mediation, and meanwhile, they would manipulate the negotiations from the shadows. But then why forge a second version, the one with your signature?" Locke folded his hands behind his back. "Because the first phase failed. You discovered the forged article prematurely. Someone in the American legation became a liability. They needed a new plan, one that involved discrediting you, Henry." Sanford's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Who inside my legation?" Locke hesitated only a moment. "Your deputy, Philip Hawthorne." Elias jerked. "What? I've met him. He seems charming, polite, intelligent. Yes, that is precisely why he is useful." Sanford clenched his jaw. "Hawthorne would never." "Wouldn't he?" Locke interrupted quietly. "He was seen twice entering the Russian embassy after hours, and last month he sent a coded message to Vienna without your authorization." Sanford took a step back, as if the floor had shifted beneath him. No, he's ambitious, yes,
Reckless, maybe, but a traitor? Locke shook his head. Not a traitor to America, a servant to something older. The wind outside howled through the cracks of the stone. Elias swallowed. So Hawthorne helped forge the document with your signature? Locke nodded. He did, and last night's fire was meant to erase the evidence. Sanford closed his eyes. All this time, under my roof. Locke lowered his voice. And that is why they will strike again today. Elias felt the air freeze. Again? Where? Locke looked directly at Sanford. At the American legation.
The smell of smoke. They reached the fishing boat faster than Elias thought possible. The old fisherman, alarmed by their pace, cast off at once and turned the bow toward the city. Halfway across the Bosporus, Elias noticed a change in the air. A sharp, bitter smell. He lifted his head and scanned the skyline. Then he saw it. A plume of black smoke rising from the direction of Para.
Dear God,
Sanford breathed.
they've done it.
Locke leaned forward urgently.
They are burning the legation.
No, Elias whispered.
The documents, your staff.
Sanford slammed his hand on the side of the boat. Faster! He yelled at the fishermen. But they were still minutes away. The wind carried embers across the water. Sanford turned to Elias, eyes blazing. Turner, listen carefully. When we reach the docks, you run to the legation and help anyone you can. Locke and I will search for Hawthorne. But that is an order, Sanford snapped. Elias nodded, pulse hammering. The fishermen guided them as close to the shore as possible before the smoke became overwhelming. Sanford leapt out first, followed by Locke. Elias hit the ground last, nearly slipping on wet stone. Together, they sprinted through the streets toward the raging fire. As they rounded a corner, the full horror came into view. The United States legation was engulfed in flames, windows shattered, beams collapsing, smoke pouring into the sky like a funeral banner. People screamed. Men tried forming a bucket chain. Women dragged injured clerks from the doorway. Elias saw faces he recognized, clerks he had spoken to, guards he had greeted, some coughing violently, others bleeding. Sanford stared at the building he had called home. Locke stepped close and whispered, "They want the hidden compartment destroyed." Sanford gritted his teeth. "Then they will find nothing but ashes." He turned to Elias. "Go." Elias sprinted toward the burning doors, and behind him, Locke and Sanford disappeared into the chaos, searching for the man who betrayed an empire. Chapter 4. The Russian Envoy's Shadow. The heat was unbearable. Elias stumbled through the smoke-filled entryway of the burning American legation, pulling his coat across his mouth as flames licked the wooden beams overhead. Ash rained like black snow. The crackling of fire mixed with the frantic shouts outside, voices calling for water, for help, for survivors. Inside, it felt like a collapsing world. A beam groaned above his head, then fell with a thunderous crash behind him, sealing off the doorway he had just slipped through. Elias pressed forward anyway. He had no weapon, only a scarf wrapped around his nose and mouth. But he had something stronger than sense, determination. He pushed through the smoke.
Somewhere inside this inferno were documents, people, and secrets worth killing for, worth burning for. Secrets that might ignite a war if left unchecked. His eyes burned as the heat intensified. "Hello?" he called out, voice muffled. "If anyone can hear me, shout!" There was no answer. He moved deeper, coughing violently. Through the dancing flames, he spotted movement. A figure trying to crawl across the floor. Elias rushed to him. It was one of the clerks, a young man named Devin, recognizable by his spectacles, now cracked and hanging from one ear. Elias crouched. "Devin, can you stand?" Devin coughed, trying to breathe. I can, but my leg." Elias looked down at the clerk's ankle, twisted beneath him. "Put your arm around me," Elias said. He hoisted the man up, supporting his weight as they staggered toward the exit. Flames burst along the staircase, consuming papers that fluttered like dying birds. They reached the threshold. 2 men outside grabbed Devin from Elias's arms and carried him clear. Elias leaned on his knees, gasping. Someone shouted, "There's another inside! The ambassador's clerk! She didn't come out!" Elias looked up sharply. "Who?" "Marie!" shouted one of the guards. "She was cataloging documents before the fire started." Elias didn't hesitate. He re-entered the building. The woman in the archive room. The archive room was on the 2nd floor, the most dangerous part of the structure. Elias climbed the staircase 2 steps at a time, covering his head as embers rained down. The hallway was an inferno. The heat pushed against him like a living force, trying to drive him back down. The air was thick, suffocating, but he pressed forward. Through the smoke, he spotted movement. A figure trying to crawl across the floor. Elias rushed to him. It was Marie, the clerk with the auburn hair who always greeted Elias kindly. She looked up weakly at Elias. "Turner, I've got you," he said, rushing to her side. He lifted the cabinet just enough for her to slide her arm free. "Thank you," she whispered, coughing. Elias helped her up. But as they turned to leave, Marie grabbed his arm. "Wait! There's something you need to see." Elias blinked through the smoke. "Now, Marie? The building is coming down." She pointed to a drawer she had pulled open before the fire began. Inside were 2 objects. A sealed envelope marked with Sanford's personal insignia, and a folded sheet with a serpent seal. Elias's heart jumped. "Where did you get this?" "Someone placed it on my desk last night. I didn't understand it. I was about to bring it to Mr. Sanford when A sudden explosion rocked the building. The floor dropped a few inches. Marie screamed. Elias grabbed both documents, stuffed them in his coat, and pulled her close. "We're getting out of here now." He lifted her as smoke engulfed the room, carrying her across his shoulder while pieces of the ceiling crashed around them. They reached the staircase. Below them, flames tore through the banister. Elias muttered under his breath, "You've got to be kidding me." He shifted Marie to his back and gripped the railing that remained. One step, another. The heat seared his skin, sparks burned his hair. Marie clung to him, nearly fainting. They reached the bottom just as the entire second floor collapsed behind them. People outside cheered when Elias emerged through the smoke, carrying Marie in his arms, like a rescuer in a battlefield. Sanford, covered in soot but unharmed, ran to them immediately. "Turner!" he shouted. "Thank God!" Elias sat Marie down gently. Sanford knelt beside her, checking for injuries. "Marie, can you hear me?" Marie nodded weakly. Elias reached into his coat and handed Sanford the serpent-sealed document and the envelope. I found these with her. Sanford stared at the documents, then at Elias. Dear God, this changes everything. Before Elias could ask what he meant, Locke rushed toward them breathless. Henry, Locke said, gripping Sanford's arm. The Russians aren't retreating. They're advancing. Sanford stiffened. Where? Locke pointed down the hill, and Elias saw them. 3 black carriages moving swiftly, escorting their occupant behind a curtain of armed guards. Sanford whispered. The Russian envoy himself. Locke confirmed. Count Victor Mihailovich, and he's headed straight for the burning legation.
The Russian envoy arrives. The carriages halted abruptly before the burning building. Guards formed a perimeter instantly. Count Victor Mikhailovich stepped out. Tall, elegant, with the trimmed beard and striking gray eyes, he carried himself like a man who expected the world to move aside for him. He studied the flames with no expression, then noticed Sanford. He walked forward calmly. Mr. Sanford, the Count said in a deep, measured voice. A tragedy. Such a loss for American diplomacy. His gaze swept the ruins. You must forgive my presence. I simply wish to express my condolences. Sanford stepped between Mikhailovich and the building. I doubt that very much, Count. The Count smiled faintly. You were always perceptive. Elias stood behind Sanford, fists clenched. Locke positioned himself subtly to the side, hand near his coat. Mikhailovich's eyes moved from Sanford to Elias. And this young man, he seems eager, determined, surely not a diplomat. He's with me, Sanford said. Ah, then he's in much danger. Sanford narrowed his eyes. What do you want? Mikhailovich's expression sharpened. To stop a war. Sanford scoffed. You stop a war? Mikhailovich leaned closer. Yes, because someone is doing everything they can to start one. He pulled a folded parchment from inside his coat. Elias recognized the serpent seal instantly. Sanford's jaw tightened. You're working with them, Sanford said. No, Mikhailovich said calmly. I am trying to survive them. Elias blinked in confusion. The Count continued. The serpent has been manipulating my government. They forged a treaty you were never meant to see. When you discovered it, they forged a second version to place the blame on you. Sanford stared. Why would they sabotage Russia? Because Russia grows too powerful, the Ottomans too desperate, and the Americans too ambitious. The serpent needs all 3 to remain in balance, so that they remain in control. Elias swallowed hard. So the fire, was their work? Mikhailovich nodded slowly. Yes, and not their last. A guard approached the Count and whispered something urgently in his ear. Mikhailovich looked back at Sanford. You found something in the fire, something they want desperately. Sanford remained silent. The Count stepped closer. Give it to me. I can protect it. Sanford laughed faintly. You expect me to trust you with evidence that could destroy every empire involved? Mikhailovich's eyes chilled. If you do not, you will not live to see sundown. Locke stepped forward, hand inside his coat. Careful, Count. Threats make you look guilty. Mikhailovich didn't even glance at Locke. I am guilty of nothing except trying to keep my nation alive. Sanford crossed his arms. You will not have the documents. Mikhailovich sighed. That is unfortunate. He snapped his fingers. His guards drew weapons. The crowd gasped. Panic rippled through the street. Sanford whispered,
Stay behind me, Turner. But before a single shot could be fired, a loud blast erupted from the hill above. Everyone looked up. A plume of white smoke rose from the rooftop of a nearby building, and from within it, a figure moved. Elias squinted. A silhouette. Long coat. Rifle. A sniper.
Marie screamed, pointing. "Henry, look out!" The shot rang out. Sanford shoved Elias aside just as the bullet struck the ground where he'd been standing. Guards scrambled. People ran. Chaos exploded. The Count shouted an order in Russian. Locke drew his pistol. Elias ducked behind a fallen beam as another shot zipped overhead. Sanford crouched beside him. Turner, behind the carriages. Elias sprinted, dodging debris and terrified civilians, sliding behind one of the Russian carriages. Another bullet shattered a window inches above his head. Locke fired back at the rooftop. Sanford grabbed Elias's shoulder. "We need to leave, now." "But the Count." "Forget him. That sniper isn't aiming at Russia. He's aiming at us." And in that moment, Elias realized the serpent wasn't trying to silence one nation. They were trying to silence the truth. Sanford grabbed Locke by the collar. "Retreat to the back alley." Locke nodded, firing one last shot up the hill before ducking behind the carriages. Mikhailovich snarled an order to his men. "Find that shooter and find those Americans." The Count's guards dispersed. Sanford, Locke, and Elias fled down a narrow alley as the burning embers rained behind them and gunshots echoed from the rooftops. Elias looked back once. The Count locked eyes with him. Not hatred, not anger, but something far more dangerous. Recognition. As if he knew Elias would matter. Sanford pushed him forward. "Move. We have to disappear before they close the district." Elias ran. The fire behind him roared louder, and he realized something chilling. The war for the truth had just begun. Marie screamed, pointing. "Henry, look out!" The shot rang out. Sanford shoved Elias aside just as the bullet struck the ground where he'd been standing. Guards scrambled. People ran. Chaos exploded. The Count shouted an order in Russian. Locke drew his pistol. Elias ducked behind a fallen beam as another shot zipped overhead. Sanford crouched beside him. Turner, behind the carriages. Elias sprinted, dodging debris and terrified civilians, sliding behind one of the Russian carriages. Another bullet shattered a window inches above his head. Locke fired back at the rooftop. Sanford grabbed Elias's shoulder. "We need to leave, now." "But the Count." "Forget him. That sniper isn't aiming at Russia. He's aiming at us." And in that moment, Elias realized the serpent wasn't trying to silence one nation. They were trying to silence the truth. Sanford grabbed Locke by the collar. "Retreat to the back alley." Locke nodded, firing one last shot up the hill before ducking behind the carriages. Mikhailovich snarled an order to his men. "Find that shooter and find those Americans." The Count's guards dispersed. Sanford, Locke, and Elias fled down a narrow alley as the burning embers rained behind them and gunshots echoed from the rooftops. Elias looked back once. The Count locked eyes with him. Not hatred, not anger, but something far more dangerous. Recognition. As if he knew Elias would matter. Sanford pushed him forward. "Move. We have to disappear before they close the district." Elias ran. The fire behind him roared louder, and he realized something chilling. The war for the truth had just begun. Chapter 5: The Letter That Shouldn't Exist. The alleyway was narrow and uneven, its cobblestones slick from morning dew and drifting ash. Elias ran blindly, lungs burning, heart thundering in his ears. Sanford and Locke were just ahead, moving with the practiced urgency of men who had escaped death more times than they could count. Behind them, gunfire still cracked in the distance. Shouts in Russian echoed between the tall stone buildings. "Faster, Turner!" Locke barked without looking back. Elias forced his legs to move. The smell of smoke clung to his clothes, and his throat stung with every breath. They barreled through a side street, cutting through a cramped market square where shopkeepers rushed to gather their wares. A woman screamed when she saw the soot-covered trio charging through. Sanford grabbed Elias's sleeve and yanked him behind a stack of fish crates. "Down. Stay low." They crouched as a squad of Russian soldiers stormed past the intersection, not searching blindly, but moving with purpose. They knew exactly which streets the Americans might flee through. Sanford muttered under his breath, "They're sealing the quarter." Locke checked his pistol, then the alley behind them. "We're running out of time." Elias wiped soot from his brow. "Where are we going?" "To the only place they won't expect," Sanford replied. Locke frowned. "Henry, you can't mean..." "I do. Turner won't like it. We don't have the luxury of liking anything at the moment." Locke exhaled sharply and nodded. "Fine, but we move now." Sanford gripped Elias's shoulder. "Stay close. One wrong turn and they'll find us dead before noon." The hidden safe house. They slipped through a maze of alleys until they reached a rusted iron door tucked between two abandoned workshops. Locke tapped a precise rhythm on the door. 3 short knocks, a pause, then 2 slow ones. A slit opened. A pair of eyes examined them harshly. Then the door unlocked. Inside, the safe house looked nothing like Elias imagined. It was not a bunker or a dim hideout. It was a restaurant, or rather, what used to be one. Tables were overturned and layered with dust. Broken lanterns hung from the ceiling. A bar stood in one corner, its countertop cracked but still upright. In a far corner stood a young woman with a cane, straight-backed and alert. Her hair was raven dark, tied loosely behind her. She studied them with a blend of suspicion and familiarity. Locke sighed. "Hello, Sora." Elias blinked. She was not Russian, not American. Her accent, when she spoke, made it clear. "You 3 look like you crawled out of the devil's fireplace." Sanford approached her. "We were nearly shot, twice, and the legislation is gone." Sora raised a single eyebrow. "Then you must have done something exceptionally stupid." Locke pointed at Elias. "Blame him." Elias bristled. "Me? I saved Marie." "Which is heroic," Locke said matter-of-factly, "and stupid." Sora crossed her arms. "Enough. Did you bring it?" Sanford reached into his coat. The serpent-sealed document. And his own letter. Sora's eyes darkened. "Put them on the table." The 2 letters. Sanford spread both sheets across a dusty table. Elias leaned over to look more closely. Sanford's letter, bearing his personal insignia, was meticulously written. It described American negotiations with the Russians and indicated peaceful intentions. But the other document, the one with the serpent seal, it was almost identical. Same content, same handwriting style, same diplomatic phrasing.
except for 3 sentences. 3 sentences that could destroy everything. The United States rejects the current terms and considers Russian expansion a threat. Any further violation of the boundaries will be interpreted as an act of aggression. America reserves the right to respond with military force. Elias shivered. That would start a war, he whispered. Zora nodded. Exactly. Sanford leaned back, rubbing his temples. That forged version is perfect enough to be believable to anyone outside my immediate circle. If Russia leaked it, Zora finished, America looks like the aggressor. And if America reacts first, Russia has all the justification it needs to strike back. Elias swallowed. So this is why the legislation was burned. Sanford nodded slowly. And why that sniper tried to kill us. Zora tapped the serpent's seal with her cane. This symbol keeps showing up in every forged letter, every stolen memo, and every assassination attempt for the past 5 years. Elias frowned. You know who they are? No one does, but they're older than any of the nations involved, older even than some empires. They work behind the scenes, political ghosts. Their symbol always changes, but the serpent is the one that appears when things reach crisis level. Elias pointed to the seal. There's something strange about it. Look at the ring around the serpent. Doesn't it look like there are tiny symbols etched into it? Zora grabbed a magnifying lens from her coat. Let me see. She examined the seal and froze. Locke noticed. What is it? Zora stepped back. These aren't symbols, they're coordinates. Elias's pulse spiked. Coordinates? To where? To somewhere near the eastern shore, in the Russian-controlled territories. Sanford clenched the edge of the table.
So they want us to find them. Locke shook his head. Or they want the Russians to find us searching for them. It's a trap. Elias looked between them. So what do we do? The room fell silent. Sanford finally answered. We investigate anyway. Locke snapped. Henry! We don't have a choice, Sanford countered. If we ignore those coordinates, another forged letter will surface. Another fire, another assassination attempt. Zora nodded. And next time, they might not miss. Elias exhaled shakily. So we're going straight into Russian territory? Sanford nodded. Yes, but there's something I need to tell you before we go. He opened his coat again and pulled out something Elias hadn't seen earlier. A third letter, burnt around the edges, barely intact. He placed it on the table. This, Sanford said, is the document Devon found last week, the one he never got to deliver. Elias leaned closer. The letter was damaged, but the parts that survived chilled him more deeply than anything yet. The serpent has awakened again. Do not trust the envoy. Someone in your own circle has already betrayed you. Elias looked up sharply. Someone in your circle? Sanford nodded grimly. Which circle is that? Your diplomatic staff? Your allies? Us? Elias looked at Sanford without blinking. I don't know. Locke rubbed the scar on his jaw. Whoever it is, they're feeding information to both sides. Zora tapped the table twice with her cane. Then let's get moving. We have a spy behind us and a phantom enemy ahead. Comforting. Elias didn't share her dark humor. Sanford folded the forged documents. The Russians believe we escaped, but they don't know where we're going. If we move now, under cover of the chaos, we can reach the docks before nightfall. Elias tightened his jaw. Just tell me one thing. Those coordinates, are we really following them, even knowing it's a trap? Sanford answered without hesitation. Yes. Why? Sanford's voice dropped to a grave whisper. Because whoever forged these letters didn't want to start just one war. He met Elias's eyes. They wanted to start the last one. A chill ran through Elias. Locke checked his pistol and tucked it into his coat. Sora moved toward the back exit. Sanford nodded to Elias. Ready? Elias inhaled. No, he wasn't ready, but he stepped forward anyway. Yes. And with that, the four of them vanished into the shadows, heading toward Russian shores, forged letters in hand, and a war they might not survive. Chapter 6: The Whispering Sea. The sun had already started sinking toward the horizon when the four left the abandoned restaurant. The air outside was a murky haze. Smoke from the burned legation drifted across the district, mixing with the salty scent of the nearby harbor. The streets were quieter now, but tense. Soldiers patrolled in small groups, murmuring to one another with clipped urgency. Sanford led the group with quick, deliberate strides. "We stay in the shadows," he murmured. "No sudden movements, no eye contact with patrols." Locke scoffed quietly. "That's easy for you to say. Turner looks like a walking bonfire." Elias glared. "I saved a life today." "And nearly lost yours," Locke replied. "Heroism is expensive, Turner." Sora walked with her cane tapping lightly against the pavement, her eyes scanning everything. The rooftops, the alleys, the carts creaking down the road. "The docks will be sealed soon," she said softly. "We have maybe an hour, if luck favors us." Sanford glanced back at her. "Luck left sometime this morning." Sora smirked. "Then we rely on misdirection." The shadow route to the docks. They cut through a row of derelict warehouses, sticking to the narrow passages between them, rats scattered beneath their footsteps. The buildings loomed like silent giants, their windows boarded up, their doors chained. Elias whispered, "Why is this whole area abandoned?" "Trade route collapse, too many tariffs, too little oversight, a perfect breeding ground for smugglers, spies, and everything in between." Locke nudged Elias, and us. They pressed on until they reached a wide fence of rusted iron overlooking the harbor. Beyond it, the water shimmered dimly, silver beneath the fading light. Dozens of ships swayed against the ropes. Elias frowned. "There are too many soldiers." Sanford saw it too. Russian troops moved in tight formations along the piers, checking every vessel, questioning every captain. Locke whistled under his breath. "They're expecting someone." "Us," Sora replied. Sanford shook his head. "No, this is too large an operation just for us. They're looking for something or someone else." Elias felt a shiver. "Another envoy? Or another message," Sanford whispered. "Another forged document." Sora clutched her cane. "Then we need to move now." Locke scanned the perimeter. "There," he said, pointing to a small gap in the fence where the metal had rusted through. "We can slip through and reach the lower docks." Sanford nodded. They crouched and slid through, one by one, careful not to rattle the loose metal. Elias tore part of his sleeve on a ragged edge, but ignored it. The lower docks smelled of salt, rotting rope, and stale fish. The tide slapped against weathered pilings. Sora paused. "There's a fisherman's boat near the end," she said, pointing with her cane. "Small enough to avoid attention, fast enough to get us to the open water." Locke frowned. "Is the fisherman trustworthy?" Sora shrugged. "No, but he hates soldiers more than he hates being bribed." "That's good enough," Sanford said. "Let's—" A voice cut through the air. "Stop where you are." They froze. 3 Russian soldiers stepped from behind a stack of crates, rifles raised. Elias's stomach dropped. One soldier, the tallest, pointed directly at Sanford. You're the American. Come with us." Locke subtly shifted his weight. Sora's fingers tightened around her cane. Sanford calmly lifted his hands. "Or unarmed." "Unfortunate, but expected," the soldier said in accented English. Elias scanned the surroundings. The water,
the boats, the ropes, the crates. He spotted something, a loose cargo net hanging from a pulley behind the soldiers, suspended barrels above it. He leaned close to Locke and whispered, "On your three." Locke blinked, then smiled faintly. The soldiers stepped closer. "Now all of you will..." "Three," Locke muttered. He grabbed Elias's arm and shoved him sideways. At the same instant, Locke fired a single shot into the pulley rope above. The barrels dropped like thunder. Crash! They slammed into the crates, knocking them over. The soldiers dove for cover. "Run!" Sanford yelled. They bolted toward the pier. Shouts erupted behind them. More boots, more rifles raised. Sora reached the fisherman's boat first and jumped on board with surprising agility for someone using a cane. Locke untied the mooring rope with frantic speed. Elias helped Sanford climb in, then leapt on board as the soldiers charged toward them. Locke shoved off with a long pole. "Move! Move! Move!" Bullets cracked across the water. Splinters of wood erupted from the boat's stern. Sora grabbed Elias's arm. "Down!" He dropped to the floorboards as more shots rang out. But the little boat drifted quickly out of range, pushed by the outgoing tide. Soon, the shouts faded. The rifle cracks grew distant. The harbor lights flickered behind them. And then darkness swallowed the sea. The sea at night. The fisherman's boat rolled gently over the waves. The wind picked up, cold and sharp, carrying the distant calls of gulls. Elias sat up slowly. "Everyone okay?" Sora nodded. Locke exhaled in relief. Sanford checked his coat, making sure the forged letters were still secure. Elias stared at the city lights shrinking behind them. "We barely escaped."
"That will become a pattern," Sanford replied softly. Locke took the rudder and adjusted the sail. "We have a long journey ahead. Russian waters won't welcome us." Elias hugged his arms against the chill. "So, where exactly are we going?" Sora reached into her coat and pulled out a small notebook. She opened to a page where she had rewritten the coordinates from the serpent seal. "These numbers point to a shoreline village," she said, tracing the letters. "A remote one. No major roads, no military bases." Locke snorted. "Which means it's perfect for hiding something. Or someone," Sanford added. Elias frowned. "What do you think we'll find there?" Sora turned a page. "The seal is old, older than our governments. If the serpent has a root, a home, a base of operations, that village may be the closest we'll get to its origin." Elias exhaled slowly. "I don't like this." "Good," Locke said. "Fear keeps you alive." "Optimistic, as ever," Elias muttered. The night grew colder. The moon rose above the horizon, pale, thin, like a blade. For a while, no one spoke. The only sound was water against wood and the low whistle of the wind. Then Sanford broke the silence. "Turner." Elias looked up. "Back at the legation, when the second floor collapsed, you went back willingly, without any thought of your own life." Elias lowered his gaze. "Anyone would have." "No," Sanford said quietly. "Most wouldn't." Locke smirked. "Certainly not me." Sora shot him a glare. "Don't pretend you wouldn't." Locke shrugged. "I might. Depends on the day." Sanford leaned closer to Elias. "You have courage, but courage without direction is dangerous." Elias swallowed. "Are you saying I shouldn't be here?" "I'm saying," Sanford replied, "that you need to understand what you're stepping into." He pulled out the burnt letter, the one Devon discovered. Elias stared at the charred edges. Sanford handed it to him. "Someone in my circle betrayed us. That means someone close, maybe closer than we want to admit, is feeding information to the serpent." A chill ran through Elias. "Do you think it's one of us?" Sanford didn't answer, but the silence said everything. Elias folded the letter,
hands trembling. Sarah watched him carefully. Locke focused on the horizon. The wind carried the sound of their uncertainty, scattering it across the black, whispering sea. The fog. Hours passed. Elias dozed against the side of the boat, lulled by the rocking waves. When he woke again, the sky was gray, faintly lit by the first hints of dawn. But something was wrong. He sat up sharply. Fog, dense, white, suffocating fog surrounded the boat. Every direction the same. No horizon, no sky, no difference between water and air. Locke cursed under his breath. This wasn't here a moment ago. Sanford narrowed his eyes. Fog doesn't roll in this fast. Sarah closed her notebook and whispered, "This is deliberate." Elias felt his pulse quicken. "What do you mean deliberate?" Sarah said, "Someone's creating a blind, for surveillance or for an ambush." Locke's hand moved to his pistol. "All right, if something comes out of this fog, I'm shooting first." Elias gripped the edge of the boat. A faint sound drifted through the air. A bell. Soft, distant. Clang, clang, clang. Sanford stiffened. "That's not a harbor bell." "No," Sarah whispered. "It's a signal." Elias peered into the fog. Shapes moved. Slow. Tall. A ship? No. Multiple. Their outlines sharpened as the fog thinned just enough. Dark hulls, black sails, no flags. Locke's eyes widened. "Oh, excellent. Ghost ships." The vessels surrounded them silently. Then a voice boomed across the water. "Lower your sail. Surrender peacefully." Sarah muttered under her breath, "We should have taken a bigger boat." Elias swallowed. "Who are they?" Sanford answered quietly, "The Serpent's hunters." Elias felt ice crawl up his spine. "What do they want?" Sanford looked straight ahead as the fog thickened again, swallowing their ships, their oars slicing the water like whispers. "They want," he said grimly, "to make sure none of us ever reach those coordinates." The bell rang again, closer and closer and closer. The fog swallowed their little boat whole, and the hunt began.
Chapter 7. The Hunters in the Fog. The bell's toll faded into the white abyss, but ripples across the water betrayed the movement of something large and deliberate. Elias gripped the railing of the small fisherman's boat, his knuckles pale. The fog pressed against down like a living wall, swallowing sound, light, and distance. Locke lowered his voice to a harsh whisper. "Everyone stay down. If they see silhouettes, we're done." Sanford crouched beside Elias, eyes narrowed toward the shifting fog. "Sora," he whispered. "Anything?" She lifted her cane slightly, angling her head like she was listening not with her ears, but with every inch of her body. "There are at least 3 vessels," she murmured, "circling us." Elias felt the hair rise on his arms. "Circling? Like sharks?" "No," Sora muttered. "Sharks don't give warnings." Locke chambered a round into his pistol. "Wonderful. They're polite killers." The bell rang again. This time directly ahead. Clang. Clang. A shadow grew through the mist, far too large to be any fishing vessel, too silent to be any military ship. The hull appeared first, black as obsidian, with carved ridges along its side like curling fangs.
Elias's chest tightened. "What kind of ship is that?" Sanford whispered. "Not a government ship. Not any government." Sora's voice dropped to a chilling hush. "It's theirs." The boarding. A longboat detached from the dark ship, gliding toward them as if the water obeyed its command. 6 figures rowed in perfect silence. No grunts, no splashes, just the whisper of oars slicing water. Elias crouched lower. "Should we run? Fight? Hide?" Locke hissed. "In a bathtub? With what weapons, Turner? My charming personality?" Sora tapped his boot with her cane. "Quiet. Listen." The longboat stopped 20 feet away. The figures paused. Then one of them stood. Tall, hooded, clad in a dark, water-resistant cloak that glimmered strangely like oil on the surface of a lake. The hooded figure removed their glove and raised their hand slowly. Not in greeting, in command. The bell rang again, this time behind them. Clang. A second longboat had appeared, and a third. They were surrounded. Sora inhaled sharply. This is the serpent's method. Surround first, strike second, question never. Sanford placed a calming hand on Elias's shoulder. There's always a way out. Always. Remember that. Elias nodded, though fear clawed at his ribs. The hooded figure spoke at last, their voice muffled, androgynous, and strangely calm. Ambassador Sanford, Agent Locke, Sora of Soul, and Elias Turner. Elias froze. "How do they know our names?" he whispered. "Professional courtesy. They kill by name." The voice continued. "You carry documents that were not intended for your hands. Surrender them now, and your deaths will be brief. Resist, and the sea will take you slowly." Sanford stepped forward, standing tall despite the fog swirling around him.
Locke's gambit. Locke leaned close to Sanford. "Henry, we need a distraction. Something big." Sora nodded. "Fog is their element, not ours." Elias whispered. "What if we use it against them?" They all looked at him. Elias swallowed. "We can't outfight them, but fog distorts sound. If we create a loud enough noise, we can make them think another ship is approaching." Locke blinked. "Not bad, Turner." Sora scanned the deck. "We don't have cannons or equipment." "No," Elias said, "but we have barrels." Locke's eyes brightened. "The ones we smashed earlier. They were full of spirits, high-proof alcohol." Elias nodded. "Alcohol burns fast, and noises echo over water." Sanford caught on instantly. "You want to create an explosion?" Elias nodded. "A big one." Sora whispered, "But we'll be right next to it." Elias exhaled, chest tight. "I'll take that risk." The hooded figure raised their hand to signal the boarding. Locke moved fast. "Sanford, Sora, to the stern, now!" They scrambled as Locke and Elias kicked one of the barrels over, soaking the deck with potent fumes. Sora flicked her cane, revealing a hidden compartment inside. A matchbox. She struck one match. The spark hissed in the damp air. Elias grabbed her wrist. "Wait." He pulled the match from her fingers. "They'll expect you, not me." Sora stared at him. "You won't survive the blast if you stay." "I don't plan to." He turned and sprinted toward the bow as the enemy longboats closed in.
Sanford! Sanford! Yelled an. Turner, get back here! But Elias didn't listen. He ran straight into the densest part of the fog, match held tightly between his fingers. The hooded figure pointed. Kill him! Arrows whipped past Elias, slicing through the fog. He reached the bow, dropped to his knees, struck the match again. It ignited instantly. Elias swallowed the lump in his throat. Please work. He tossed the burning match onto the alcohol-soaked planks. The explosion. The blast ripped through the fog like a thunderclap. Boom! The boat lurched violently. Fire shot upward. Waves exploded outward in a massive ripple. The nearest longboats capsized instantly, sending hooded soldiers into the freezing water. The fog lit up with a fiery glow, revealing the larger Serpent ship. Its crew scrambled in confusion. Locke grabbed Sanford. Jump! Sora leapt into the water without hesitation. Elias sprang backward as the flaming deck erupted behind him. The explosion threw him into the air. The world spun. Water engulfed him, icy, brutal. He kicked, trying to surface. Something grabbed his coat. He panicked until he saw who it was. Sanford! Hold on, Turner! Kick! Locke swam beside them, guiding them away from the burning wreckage. Behind them, the Serpent ship struggled to regain control. Fog churned around them, now mixed with smoke. Sora reached the floating piece of driftwood and shouted, There! Grab on! The four clung to the drifting plank as waves carried them away from the chaos. The fog thickened again, swallowing the sounds of enemy shouts. Locke coughed seawater. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed the leisurely swim, he croaked. Elias gasped, shivering uncontrollably. Did it work? Sanford looked back toward the fading glow. Yes, he said softly. We're alive. Sora tapped the side of the driftwood. And they lost us. The fog drifted apart in thin wisps, revealing the open ocean beyond, dark, boundless, indifferent. Locke pointed northeast. That current will take us toward the Russian coast. Sanford nodded. Good. We need to reach the village. Elias wrapped his arms around himself for warmth, teeth chattering. Sora looked at him. You did well. Reckless, but well. Elias made a weak smile. So we're still going. Sanford's voice hardened, now more than ever. Locke leaned back on the driftwood. And when we reach land, what then? Sanford looked toward the faint silhouette of the distant coastline. Then, he said, we go hunting. The Serpent wanted us dead before reaching those coordinates. That means we're getting close. Elias shivered, not from the cold this time, but from the weight of what lay ahead. Sora adjusted her cane. Their hunters are not far behind. Locke nodded grimly. And whatever waits in that village will be far worse. Elias watched the last flickers of flame through the fog, drifting further away. Then darkness consumed everything. They drifted toward the unknown.
Chapter 8. The village that time erased. The Russian coastline rose from the mist like a charcoal sketch against a silver dawn. Jagged cliffs, wind-bent trees, and dark pines created a landscape that felt both untouched and forgotten. Elias clung to the driftwood as the current pushed them toward a narrow, rocky inlet. Locke squinted through the fog. Well, at least we're not shark food, yet. Sora raised her head, listening. No engines, no voices, no patrols. Sanford nodded. They won't expect us to come ashore here. This place hasn't been inhabited for decades. Then what are we walking into? Elias asked. Sanford's eyes narrowed. History that never made it into the books. The landing. The four of them pushed ashore, hauling themselves onto the cold, pebbled ground. Elias collapsed first, lungs burning with exhaustion. Locke flopped down beside him. Remind me why the hell we didn't steal a bigger boat? Sanford stretched his arms, ignoring Locke's sarcasm. Because bigger boats get spotted. This inlet leads straight to the abandoned village. Sora stood first, brushing water from her clothes. Move quickly. The serpent won't take long to realize we survived. Elias pulled himself up, legs shaking. What exactly is this village? Sanford paused, choosing his words carefully. During the Cold War, the Soviets had places they erased from maps. Shelters, laboratories, experiments. Some were biological, some were technological, and some were neither. Locke frowned. Neither? Sora tapped her cane. They studied a different kind of weapon. Not built, found. Elias swallowed. Found where? Sanford pointed inland. Here. The path of silence. The forest greeted them with an unnatural stillness. No birds, no insects, not even the wind or rustling leaves. The silence was so complete it pressed against Elias's ears. Feels like the woods are holding their breath, Elias whispered. They are, Sora murmured. Places remember what happened to them. Locke rolled his eyes. Wonderful. Haunted woods. My favorite. Sanford led them along a narrow dirt path. Every few minutes, he checked a small metal locator with a flickering green display. Elias watched the screen. Is that a Geiger counter? Sanford shook his head. No, it detects electromagnetic disturbances, and this area is full of them. Elias felt his skin crawl. What kind of disturbances? Sanford didn't answer. Instead, they stopped at the crest of a small ridge. Below them lay the village, or what remained of it.
The village. The buildings were skeletal, wooden frames half collapsed, doors hanging open like gaping mouths. A rusted playground stood in the center, a single swing and a metal slide eaten away by time. Elias whispered, "It looks like everyone just vanished." Sanford replied quietly, "They did." Locke scanned the ruins. Any idea what year this place was abandoned? 1983, a full evacuation, classified. Sora slowly descended the hill, her cane tapping the earth like a metronome. "Elias," she said softly, "stay close. The village chooses who gets lost." Elias didn't like the wording. Chooses? Yes. Locke muttered, "Can we not phrase things like a horror novel?" Sanford motioned them toward the largest building, a long, low structure with shattered windows and a caved-in roof. "That's the primary facility," he said. "We find what we came for inside." The doorway. As they approached the building, Elias noticed something strange. The ground became smoother, as if heavily walked on, recently. Footprints in the dirt. Dozens of them. He pointed. "Someone's been here." Locke crouched to inspect. Multiple pairs, different sizes, and very fresh. Sanford's jaw tightened. The serpent reached the village before us. Sora swept her cane across the ground, then stilled. "No," she whispered. "They didn't walk out." Elias felt the cold seep into his bones. The footprints led toward the building, but none came back out. Sanford placed his hand on the door. "Stay alert. Weapons ready." Locke drew his pistol.
Sora tightened her gloves. Elias held the flashlight with trembling hands. Sanford pushed the door open. It creaked, long, slow, mournful. They stepped inside. The lab. Dust thickened the air. Long tables covered in notebooks, glass vials, and rusted equipment stretched across the room. Elias's flashlight beam revealed peeling Soviet posters warning about secrecy and loyalty. Locke whistled softly. Looks like the janitor clocked out 40 years ago. Sanford moved toward a far wall where a large map was pinned, yellowed with age. He brushed off the dust. Elias approached. "What is this?" Sanford traced a finger across red markings. "These aren't cities. They're dig sites." "Dig sites?" Elias repeated. Zora murmured, "They weren't digging for minerals." Locke looked over their shoulders. "So, what were they digging for?" Sanford pointed to a symbol drawn in red ink, an Ouroboros, a serpent eating its own tail. Elias stepped back, chilled. "The same symbol we saw on the ship?" Sanford nodded. "Yes, this is where the serpent began." Elias asked, voice small, "What were they trying to uncover?" Sanford answered with a single word. "A language." The wall. Elias frowned. "A language? Why would a language require a secret Soviet excavation?" Sanford walked past him toward the back of the lab. "Because it wasn't human." Elias blinked. "What?" Locke sighed. "Here we go." They reached a concrete wall covered with etched symbols, hundreds of them, carved deeply into the stone as though by claws or tools that left unnatural grooves. Elias stepped closer. The symbols made his skin crawl. They weren't letters, they weren't drawings, they were impressions, shapes that triggered a strange pressure behind his eyes. Sora touched one with a gloved finger. "This writing is older than any recorded civilization." Elias whispered, "How do you know?" "Because it predates memory itself." Sanford nodded. These glyphs were uncovered deep below the ground. Neither the Soviets nor the Americans could translate them, but both sides agreed on one thing. He looked at Elias. They weren't meant to be read by humans. Elias took a shaky breath. "So, what happened to the village?" Sanford hesitated. Those who tried to interpret the symbols vanished. Some went mad, others walked into the sea, a few simply dropped dead. Locke folded his arms. "So, naturally, the Soviets decided to keep digging." Sanford nodded grimly. "And eventually, they found something."
The discovery. Sora stiffened suddenly, head snapping toward the back door. "Someone's here." Locke raised his pistol. "Movement?" "No," she whispered. "Echoes. This facility remembers screams." Elias's heart pounded. Sanford pointed to a large steel door covered in frost, even though the inside of the building was warm. "That's the chamber." Locke frowned. "What chamber?" "The one that housed what they discovered." Elias felt the heavy weight of dread pulsing through the room. "What exactly did they find?" Sanford exhaled slowly. "A structure. Ancient. Metallic. Buried deep under the village. No one knows how long it's been here, but it wasn't made by humans." Elias felt dizzy. "An artifact?" Sanford shook his head. "Not an artifact." He touched the frost-covered door. "A prison. The chamber." Sanford entered a code manually on a rusted keypad, one that shouldn't have worked after all these years. But
It beat softly. The door clicked. Locke stepped back. That lock still has power? How? Sanford answered without looking at him. Because whatever is behind that door never stopped drawing energy. Elias's spine tingled. The door hissed open. Cold air poured out, unnatural, stale, ancient. They stepped inside. The chamber was circular, metallic, and far more advanced than anything Soviet. The walls hummed faintly, pulsing with a soft blue glow. In the center stood a tall, black monolith covered in the same forbidding glyphs from the wall outside. Elias approached cautiously. "What is that?" Sanford lowered his voice to a whisper. "A living fragment." Elias's breath hitched. "Of what?" Before Sanford could answer, Sora sharply whispered, "Footsteps." Locke whipped around. "Company?" "No," Sora said, trembling. "Not footsteps." Sanford turned pale. They activated the monolith. Elias's flashlight flickered. A deep vibration resonated through the floor. Then, the monolith lit up. Blue lines pulsed outward, spider webbing across the walls. Elias took a step back. "Sanford, what's happening?" Sanford stared at the glowing glyphs, horrified. "The monolith is awake." Locke cursed. "Is it dangerous?" Sanford grabbed Elias's shoulder. "More dangerous than anything we've encountered." Sora whispered. "The serpent wasn't trying to stop us from finding this place." Elias blinked, confused. "They weren't?" She shook her head slowly. "They were trying to stop this from awaking." Elias felt the dread sink into his stomach like a stone. The monolith hummed louder. Locke stepped back. "Okay, time to go." But the chamber door slammed shut behind them. A mechanical voice, cold, ancient, and incomprehensible, echoed through the room. The glyphs on the monolith shifted, rearranged, formed a single symbol. Elias stared at it and felt it staring back. Sanford whispered, "Oh God." Sora tightened her grip on Elias's arm. Locke raised his weapon, though it was useless. Elias whispered, "What does the symbol mean?" Sanford swallowed hard. "It means the first Sentinel has awakened." The chamber plunged into darkness, and the monolith opened its first eye.
Chapter 9. The First Sentinel. Darkness swallowed the chamber whole, thick, suffocating, absolute. Elias couldn't even see his own hands. The only sound was his heartbeat hammering against his ribs. Then, a single blue slit of light appeared on the monolith, horizontal, unblinking, an eye without a face. Elias stumbled backward. What is that?" Sora grabbed his wrist. "Do not move." Locke raised his pistol, though his hands shook violently. "I don't care how ancient this thing is. If it blinks wrong, I'm putting 2 rounds in it." Sanford didn't even turn. He was staring straight at the glowing slit. "You can't shoot it, Locke. Watch me." Sanford shook his head slowly. "That thing isn't a machine. It's a warden." Elias whispered. "A warden of what?" Sanford's voice cracked. "Of whatever the Soviets found buried beneath this village." The eye on the monolith brightened. A low hum tore through the chamber, vibrating their bones, rattling the metal floor.
Glyphs shifted across the monolith's surface like living scars. The voice returned, not electronic, not human, something older. A layered chorus that felt like hundreds of whispers, all speaking at once, not in any earthly language. But Elias understood one thing clearly. It was not greeting them. It was interrogating them. The Sentinel speaks. The hum intensified, rising in pitch. Symbols on the monolith rearranged into a spinning circular pattern. Sora gasped, stumbling backward. "It's scanning us." Locke scoffed nervously. "Scanning? What, like airport security?" "Like identifying threats," Sanford corrected. Elias swallowed. "What does it want?" Sora's voice trembled. "It wants to know why we woke it." The glowing slit widened, stretching vertically until it resembled a burning, molten eye. Then, the floor split. A ring around the base of the monolith cracked open, revealing swirling mechanical components, gears, pistons, shifting plates, moving with impossible precision. The monolith began to rise, slowly, silently, and beneath it, something else moved. Sora's breath hitched. "Holy shit!" Locke's face went pale. "Sanford, what's under that thing?" Sanford stepped backward, jaw tight. The first Sentinel isn't the monolith. Elias stared as the monolith lifted higher. "Then what is?" Sanford whispered. "The monolith is its mask." The Sentinel emerges. A metallic limb unfolded downward, smooth, obsidian black, segmented like the leg of an insect. It slammed onto the floor with a sound like shattering stone. Then another. Then a third. The monolith rose higher, revealing a towering figure beneath it. Part machine, part ancient armor, part impossible geometry. Standing nearly 12 feet tall, 6 legs, 4 arms, and a head like a sculpted helmet with the glowing slit now centered across it like a visor. Locke whispered through clenched teeth. "What in the holy hell is that?" Sanford exhaled shakily. A construct created by whoever carved the glyphs, designed to guard something. Elias could barely breathe. "Guard what?" Sora answered softly. "Knowledge, secrets, or something far worse." The Sentinel's head tilted sharply toward them, analyzing them with that blazing blue slit. Then, it took a step. The ground trembled. Locke raised his pistol again. "That's it. I'm shooting." "Don't!" Sanford roared. But Locke fired. The bullet ricocheted off the Sentinel's armor like a pinball, sparking against the wall. That was enough. The Sentinel reacted instantly. Its arms unfolded into intricate geometric shapes, like shifting blades of liquid metal, and it lunged. Elias screamed. Locke ducked.
Sora shoved Elias behind a steel crate. The Sentinel's arm slashed through the air, slicing a deep gouge into the metal floor where Locke had just been standing. Locke rolled and scrambled behind a support beam. "Why is it always me?" Sanford stepped forward with both hands raised. "Stop! Sentinel, listen, we're not your enemies." The Sentinel paused for 1 second, then turned toward Sanford slowly, head tilting like a predator recognizing prey. The deep chorus of layered voices filled the room again. Elias didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Identify, classify, eliminate. Sanford shouted, "It thinks we're trespassers." "No," Sora hissed. "It thinks we're invaders." Locke peeked out from behind the beam.
Well, it's not wrong. We did break in.
Elias clutched Sora's sleeve. How do we stop it? Sora's voice shook. We don't. We survive it. The chase. The Sentinel moved fast, far too fast for its size. Its 6 legs skittered like a monstrous insect as it lunged again. Locke fired useless shots behind him while sprinting toward the outer wall. Someone give me a better idea than running. Elias yelled, Keep running! The Sentinel's arms shot outward, stretching like spears made of shifting metal and stabbed into the ground inches from Elias's legs. Elias stumbled, limbs shaking. Sora dragged him to his feet. Move! Sanford grabbed a metal pipe from the wall and slammed it against a glowing conduit. Sparks flying. You 3, toward the emergency hatch. Elias gasped. There's a hatch? Locke shouted, Why didn't you lead with that? Sanford pointed to a rusted door partially buried behind stacked crates. Go! The Sentinel turned toward Sanford, sensing the electrical discharge. It lunged. Sanford rolled aside as the construct's blade arm pierced the conduit, sending a surge of electricity across its armor. Blue sparks cracked across the Sentinel's limbs, but only seemed to agitate it. Locke reached the hatch first, kicking debris aside. It's stuck! Move! Sora barked. She slammed her cane into the latch mechanism. A hidden spring within cracked the metal casing, enough to make the hatch groan open. Elias crawled in first. Sora followed. Locke squeezed through. Sanford sprinted toward them. The Sentinel turned. It leapt. Sanford dove through the hatch just as the Sentinel's bladed arm stabbed into the doorway, slicing the metal hatch in half. The 4 of them tumbled down a narrow maintenance tunnel, landing hard on a sloped metal floor. The tunnel shook behind them. The Sentinel was trying to force its way inside. Kuh. Okay, so Chapter 9 is trying really hard to kill us. Elias laughed hysterically, on the edge of panic. Sanford pushed himself up. We need to move. This tunnel leads deeper underground. Sora turned her head sharply. There's another presence down here. What presence? Sora whispered. Someone is waiting for us. The lower complex. The tunnel opened into a wider underground corridor, damp, cold, and rusted. Old lights flickered overhead, powered by a failing generator somewhere below. This place wasn't just a lab. It was a bunker. Locke coughed. Well, whatever they were hiding, we woke it. Elias looked back toward the hatch. The metal bulged inward. It's still coming. Sora nodded. Sentinels don't stop until their task is complete. Which is what? Locke cried. Elimination, Sora replied flatly. Sanford pointed to a distant door marked with faded Russian characters. Control room. That's where the power source is. They rushed down the corridor. The echoes of the Sentinels' pursuit grew louder. Clang, clang, clang. Elias whispered, It's tearing through the tunnel. Sanford didn't look back. Then we reached the control room first. The control room. They burst into a dim chamber filled with dusty monitors, cracked keyboards, and a massive central console glowing faintly blue. Sanford's eyes widened. It's still operational, Locke groaned. This place survived 40 winters, but my apartment can't keep the Wi-Fi stable for 12 hours? Sora approached the main console. The Sentinel draws power from here. Shut it down. Sanford nodded and began flipping breakers, pulling levers, and typing commands into the flickering interface. Elias watched the screen. Symbols, familiar ones, appeared. The same glyphs as the monolith, but these seemed organized, like instructions. Elias felt something shift in his mind, like a door creaking open. I think I've seen these before, he whispered. Sora's head snapped toward him. Where? In my dreams, Elias murmured, horrified. Sanford stopped typing. Elias, what did you just say? Elias shook his head, trembling. The symbols,
They've been in my nightmares for weeks. The room fell silent. Before anyone could speak, the wall exploded inward. Metal shards ripped through the air. Elias ducked as one tore past his ear. The Sentinels stepped through the breach, glowing, shifting, unstoppable. Locke yelled, "We didn't order room service." Sanford slammed the final breaker. "Now, Elias, hit the emergency switch." Elias dove toward a large red lever on the wall. The Sentinel lunged at him. Sora hurled her cane at its head with perfect precision. It struck the glowing slit, making the Sentinel recoil, but only for a second. Elias grabbed the lever and pulled with all his strength. The room plunged into darkness. The hum of the machine stopped. The Sentinel froze mid-lunge. Its limbs twitched. The blue light in its visor flickered. Then, for the first time, the Sentinel spoke in a voice they could understand. A deep, ancient, mournful whisper. "They are coming." Elias's blood ran cold. "Who's coming?" The Sentinel's visor dimmed. Another whisper. "The second awakens." The Sentinel collapsed, dead. Silence filled the room. Locke stood up slowly. "Second? What second? There's more of these things?" Sanford looked at the dead Sentinel, dread settling in his eyes. There weren't supposed to be two. Sora lifted her cane. There were never two. Elias swallowed hard. Then what was this one? Sora whispered the words like a curse.
The first, the weakest. Elias felt the world tilt around him. Sanford stared at the dark corridor beyond the broken wall. If the second Sentinel awakens, then the serpent isn't hunting us. Locke frowned. Then who are they hunting? Sanford turned slowly toward Elias. "You." Elias's heart stopped. "What? Why me?" Sora touched Elias's shoulder gently. "Because the second Sentinel responds to one thing." Elias stared at her. "What thing?" She whispered, "Bloodlines." The chamber lights flickered back on, and the door behind them slammed open. A tall shadow stepped inside. Not a sentinel, not a soldier, a human, but one wearing the serpent's symbol. They raised a weapon and pointed it at Elias. Sanford reached for his gun. Too late. The intruder spoke with the voice Elias recognized, a voice that shattered his world. "Elias, we need to talk." Elias's eyes widened in disbelief. "Dad?" Chapter 10. The Blood That Wakes the Ancient. The weapon didn't waver. The man holding it stepped into the control room, the broken metal sparking at his feet. His face was half lit by the flickering emergency lights, older than Elias remembered, hardened, carved by years of running from shadows Elias never knew existed. But the eyes were unmistakable, sharp, calculating, burdened. A voice Elias had not heard in years cut through the stale air. "Elias, we talk now." Elias froze, throat tightening. "Dad? How are you here?" Locke pointed his own pistol at the newcomer. "Sanford, why is this man not full of bullets already?" Sora's cane vibrated faintly in her grip. She stepped between Locke and the newcomer. "Put your weapon down." Locke blinked. "You've got to be kidding me." Sanford raised his hand sharply. "She's right. Nobody fires." Elias looked at Sanford, confused and trembling. "You knew? You knew he was alive?" Sanford didn't answer. The silence was answer enough. Elias felt something collapse in his chest. Betrayal, grief, rage.
His father stepped closer, lowering his weapon slightly, but not holstering it. He studied Elias the way a man studies a puzzle he has been avoiding for too long. "Let me see you," he murmured. "Full grown now, taller than me. Your mother would have wanted to see this." Elias's voice cracked. You left us. You disappeared." His father's jaw tightened. "I didn't leave. I was taken." The lights flickered. The dead sentinel on the floor twitched once, then fell still again. His father nodded towards it. "That is why I'm here." The intruder's name. Stanford stepped toward him cautiously. "Ryan Turner, or whatever name you're using these days, put the gun down." Locke's eyes widened. "Wait, this is Elias's father? The same one who died in a hiking accident? The same guy who's been, ghosting the planet for a decade?" Ryan Turner let out a humorless snort. "A hiking accident? That's the story they gave you? They could have at least made it believable." Elias squeezed his fists. "You vanished. Mom cried every night. We had no answers." Ryan's voice softened for the first time. "I know. I wanted to come home. I did. But if I had, they would have killed both of you." "Who? Who's they? The serpent?" Ryan looked at the broken sentinel. "No. Something older. Much older." Stanford stepped in. "Ryan, enough riddles. Why point a gun at your own son?" Ryan sighed, lowering the weapon completely. "Because Elias is the lock, and the second sentinel is the key." Elias blinked. "The what?" Sora inhaled sharply. "He's part of the bloodline." Ryan nodded. "That's why I was taken. Why your mother was targeted. Why this village is waking up after 40 years. The bloodline." Elias's chest tightened. "What are you talking about? I'm not part of anything." Ryan approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You are, son. Whether you want to be or not." He pointed toward the glyphs still glowing faintly on the dead sentinel's armor. "These symbols, your ancestors knew them." Elias shook his head violently. "No, our family is normal." Ryan hesitated, then said the words that shattered the last piece of normalcy Elias had left. "Our family descends from the first people who discovered the ancient machines, the original custodians. We were meant to guide them, to keep them dormant." Elias staggered backward. "That's insane!" Ryan shook his head. "No, it's history the world forgot, and now the world is remembering." Stanford muttered. "The serpent wanted him alive." Ryan nodded. "They need a blood descendant to activate the second sentinel." Locke raised a hand. "Okay, first, what is the second sentinel? And second, why does it want him?" Ryan looked at Elias. "Because the second sentinel wasn't designed to guard knowledge. It was designed to eradicate threats." Elias whispered. "Threats? Like humans?" Ryan nodded once. "Yes, humans." The truth about the Sentinels. Ryan approached the control console, touching a cracked screen. Static flickered, then stabilized into an image. Grainy old footage. A Soviet team wearing hazmat suits excavating a massive metallic structure buried under ice. Elias stared. "What is that?" Ryan whispered. "The cradle." Sora stiffened. "The birthplace of the Sentinels." Ryan continued. "The Soviets didn't find a weapon. They found a nursery. These constructs weren't built on Earth. They were left here, dormant, waiting for a command." Locke shuddered. Waiting for a command from who? Ryan pointed at Elias. From the bloodline chosen to awaken them. Elias felt the world tilt beneath him. No, you're telling me my DNA can wake these things up? That I'm some kind of trigger? Ryan put a hand on his shoulder. "I'm telling you the truth I've tried to keep from you since the day you were born." Elias yanked his arm back. "I don't want to be special. I don't want any of this." Ryan's voice softened but remained firm. "Neither did I."
The second sentinel. The ground trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Sora turned toward the corridor, expression tight with fear. "It's close." Locke clenched his jaw. "Please tell me that's just the first one waking back up." Ryan shook his head. "No, the first sentinel was simply the scout." Sanford exhaled. "Then where's the second?" Ryan lifted his eyes. "With the serpent." Elias's blood went cold. "They stole it?" "No." Ryan holstered his weapon and pointed downward. "They followed it. The second sentinel didn't need stealing. It walked out of its chamber 10 hours ago." Sora whispered, "And it's coming here." Elias stared at the corridor, shadows pulsing against the wall. I can feel something," he whispered. "Like pressure in my skull." Sora nodded. "It's calling you." Ryan gripped Elias's shoulders. "Listen to me. If the second sentinel reaches you, it will use you to reawaken the network." Elias stuttered. "Network? What network?" Ryan answered with dread. "A global array of dormant constructs buried across the world." Locke's jaw dropped. "You're saying there are more of these things?" Ryan nodded. "Thousands." Silence fell like an avalanche. Elias felt his legs weaken. "Dad, what do we do?" Ryan drew a breath. "We run, we hide, and we pray we can stay ahead of it." Sora shook her head. "No, we can't outrun a sentinel." Sanford nodded grimly. "She's right. We fight it." Ryan glared at him. "Fight it? Henry, your team couldn't stop the first one, let alone the second." Sanford stepped toward the broken sentinel carcass. "We didn't have Elias then." Elias flinched. "What?" Ryan snapped. "Henry, you're insane if you think he can control it." But Sanford wasn't looking at Ryan. He was looking at Elias. Calm. Certain. Afraid. "Elias," he said quietly, "you don't just trigger them." He paused. "You can command them." Elias felt like he'd been punched. "What are you saying?" Sora stepped closer. "You're not a target. You're a counterpart. The one they were designed to obey." Ryan slammed his fist into a console. "No, that's what the serpent believes. He's not ready." Sanford's voice was low, steady. "He doesn't need to be ready.
He just needs to survive. The ground shook violently. A deep, metallic roar echoed through the corridor. A roar that didn't sound mechanical. It sounded alive. Ryan grabbed his gun. "It's here." Locke gasped. "Oh, great. The giant death machine is punctual." Sora turned toward Elias. Calm, focused. "Elias, listen to me." He met her gaze, shaking. "Then how am I supposed to fight it?" Sora touched his forehead gently. "You command it, with your blood, with your mind. The Sentinels aren't alive in the human sense. They're bound by design to follow the bloodline." Ryan grabbed Elias's arm. "No, Elias, escape with me. Don't listen to them. If you try to command the second Sentinel, it will tear you apart." Sora whispered, "Or it will kneel." The air grew colder. A shadow filled the corridor. Tall, immense, shifting. The second Sentinel stepped into view. Black as space. Red markings pulsing along its limbs. More intricate, more live than the first Sentinel. And its visor burned not blue, but red. Locke whispered, "Oh, hell no." The second Sentinel lowered its head and spoke in a single thunderous voice. "Here, come forth." Elias stepped back, but his father grabbed him. "No, Elias, don't go to it." Sanford stepped forward. "Elias, if you don't face it, it will kill us all." Elias stood frozen between them. His father's grip, Sanford's words, Sora's faith, Locke's fear, the Sentinel's command. The ancient construct took another step, the ground trembling beneath its weight. "Hear, obey." Elias squeezed his eyes shut. Then he stepped forward. Ryan shouted, "Elias, no!" Locke held his breath. Sanford whispered, "God help us." Sora bowed her head. Elias opened his eyes, face pale, hands shaking, but voice steady. He stared up at the towering Sentinel and said, "Kneel." The chamber lights flickered. The Sentinel froze. Then it moved, slowly, deliberately, with earth-shaking weight. The second Sentinel bent its knees and kneeled before him. Elias's breath caught. Everyone stood in stunned silence, even Ryan. But the Sentinel wasn't finished. Its visor brightened, symbols rearranged, and then it spoke softly, almost reverently. "Command me here." Elias's world changed forever.
Chapter 11. The Sentinel's Oath. For a long moment, no one in the chamber breathed. The second Sentinel, towering, ageless, built from alloys not found on any earthly periodic table, remained bowed on one knee before Elias. The way a knight kneels before its sovereign, the way an ancient predator kneels before the only thing it fears. Ryan Turner, Elias's father, stood frozen, the color draining from his face. This isn't possible," he whispered. "Elias, don't engage with it." But Elias couldn't move, not because he was afraid, because something inside of him was waking. A pulse, a vibration, a resonance. The same rhythm emanating from the Sentinel's chest, now glowing like a furnace. A thin beam of red light scanned Elias from head to toe, harmless but unsettling. The machine's voice reverberated through the bunker like the sound of tectonic plates grinding. Heir identified. Genetic sequence confirmed. Blood of the first key. Locke nearly choked. The first what? The heck is he, it, talking about? Sora inhaled deeply.
The first key, the original bloodline that accessed the network. Your ancestors weren't guardians. She turned to Elias, her expression heavy with realization. They were builders. The builders. Ryan shook his head violently. No, that's wrong, Elias. Don't listen. Your ancestors didn't build the Sentinels. They found them. Sanford examined the glyphs pulsing on the Sentinel's armor. Ryan, these markings, they're older than recorded human civilization. How could humans build something like this thousands of years ago? Ryan clenched his teeth. They didn't. That's the point. The Sentinel raised its head slightly, but did not stand. The builders. The first key. The Heir. Elias swallowed. What does that mean? Why are you kneeling to me? The Sentinel responded. You are the echo of them. The word sent a shiver through him. Ryan stepped forward, pulling Elias back slightly. Elias, listen to me. This machine will manipulate you. You are not its master. You're bait. But Elias shook his head slowly, eyes locked on the Sentinel. I don't think it's lying. Ryan flinched. I know what these things are capable of. I watched them wipe out an entire research team in seconds. They obey until they don't. You cannot trust it. Sora stepped closer, her cane glowing faintly. Let him speak with it. Ryan snapped. You don't get a vote. Sanford raised his hand. Ryan, let him choose. The Sentinel turned his head toward Ryan. Its visor dimmed, almost in disapproval. The father is fearful. The father does not know the depth of the ancient design. Ryan pointed his pistol at it. Say one more word about me and I'll... The Sentinel's visor flared. You will do nothing. Without moving a limb, without even rising from his kneel, the Sentinel emitted a tiny pulse. The pistol flew from Ryan's hand as if yanked by invisible force and clattered across the room. Ryan staggered back. Locke shouted, Hey, no beating up the dad. But the Sentinel quieted again. Its massive head turned slowly back to Elias. Heir, the enemy approaches. The serpent has taken the cradle's core. Elias stiffened. The core of the cradle? What is that? The Sentinel's red light dimmed. The core is the first memory, the map, the signal, the command seed. Sora gasped. You mean they have the activation sequence? The Sentinel nodded once. Yes. Sanford clenched his fists. So the serpent can activate the entire network? No, the Sentinel corrected. The only Heir can unlock the final bait. Elias whispered, So, they need me? The Sentinel responded, Yes, but they will kill you once the gate is open. Locke muttered, Cool, awesome, 0 out of 10 situation.
The choice. Elias turned to his father. You knew something like this could happen. Why didn't you tell me? Ryan swallowed hard. Because the moment you knew, the moment you awakened anything, they would come for you. They already did, Elias whispered. Ryan's voice cracked. I was trying to save you. Sora stepped closer, her expression softening. And now he has to save all of us. Elias felt the weight settling on his shoulders, crushing, immense. You expect me to command this thing against the serpent? Against everything coming? The Sentinel bowed its head lower. I am your shield, your weapon, your servant. For how long? Elias asked bitterly. Until what point? The Sentinel answered with chilling clarity. Until death. Yours or mine.
The chamber went silent. Ryan whispered, "Elias, please, don't do this. You are not responsible for the mistakes of a civilization that vanished millennia ago." Elias stared at the Sentinel, then at his father, at Sanford, at Locke, at Sora. The bunker trembled again, this time deeper, longer. The Sentinel turned its crimson visor toward the ceiling. "The Serpent has activated the Harvester beacons." Sanford stiffened. "That's a kill signal." Sora exhaled slowly. "The Serpent wants the second Sentinel destroyed before you can use it." Elias's pulse raced. "Then we don't have time." He stepped forward, voice shaking but determined. "Sentinel?" The machine raised its head. "Yes, Heir. I command you to rise." A low hum vibrated through the air. The massive construct stood, slowly, deliberately, with the gravity of a mountain awaking from sleep. Locke took a step back. "Okay, this is officially the scariest thing I've ever seen." The Sentinel towered over them, its presence filling the chamber. Elias felt the resonance in his bones growing stronger, as if the thing's heartbeat synced with his. "I need you to protect us," Elias said. "All of us." The Sentinel's visor flared bright. "The protection of the Heir and his companions is now prime directive." Ryan stared in disbelief. It listens to you." Elias didn't answer. He was staring at the tunnel leading deeper underground, where faint red lights were beginning to pulse. Sora whispered, "The Serpent is nearly here." Sanford loaded his rifle. "Then let's move." Elias turned to the Sentinel. "What do we do?" The Sentinel answered, "We make war." The march. The corridor shuddered as the second Sentinel strolled forward, each step like a silent earthquake. Elias followed behind it, heart hammering, legs weak but moving. Ryan walked at his side. "You don't have to be their weapon," he warned. Elias kept walking. "No, I'm not their weapon." He looked up at the Sentinel's towering silhouette. "I'm their countermeasure." Sanford muttered to Locke, "That's the most terrifying thing a teenager has ever said." Locke whispered back, "Dude, our teenager commands a doomsday robot. I'm keeping my mouth shut." Sora moved alongside Elias, her cane glowing brighter. "You're changing, Elias. You can feel it, can't you?" He nodded slowly. "I feel connected, like there's a door in my mind that's opening." "And what's behind the door?" she asked. Elias swallowed. "I don't know, but it isn't human." The hallway ahead glowed red. The Serpent was waiting. Sora whispered, "Be strong." Ryan whispered, "Be careful." Locke whispered, "Please don't die." Sanford whispered, "Lead us." And the Sentinel spoke only one word, "Command." Elias stepped forward. The Serpent stepped out of the shadows. The ancient war began.
Chapter 12. The Serpent's Prophecy. The red glow thickened in the corridor like mist, an unnatural haze humming with electricity. Elias felt it before he saw anything, a prickling at the base of his skull, a trembling pulse in his teeth, an instinctive warning that something wrong was drawing closer. The second Sentinel stopped walking. Its visor dimmed, its body lowered, bracing, preparing. Locke whispered, Why'd it stop? Sanford gripped his rifle, because something bigger than it is in that fog. Ryan stepped in front of Elias despite the risk. I'll distract them. The serpent wants you alive, not me. But the sentinel raised its massive arm in front of Ryan, blocking him. The father will not sacrifice himself. Ryan glared at the machine. You don't get to decide that. The sentinel tilted its head slightly, almost in confusion. I serve only the heir. You are not he. Locke whispered, I swear this robot has better fathering instincts than half of my uncles. Sora placed her hand on Elias's shoulder. Prepare yourself. They're coming. Elias stared into the glowing red fog. Black silhouettes began taking shape inside it. The serpent emerges. Not one enemy. Not a few. Dozens. Figures in matte black armor stepped into view, each wearing symbols in the shape of an ancient Ouroboros. Their helmets had single vertical slits for vision, glowing faintly red. They moved in silence. Perfect formation. No wasted motion. And behind them, a tall man stepped forward, draped in ceremonial robes embroidered with serpent scales. His face was obscured by a mask of obsidian. His voice was soft, but chilling as he spoke. Elias Turner, welcome home. Elias felt his stomach twist. I'm not going anywhere with you. The masked man's voice carried amusement. You already have. We are standing inside the cradle your ancestors once ruled, and you are the last of them. Sanford aimed his rifle. Identify yourself. The masked figure tilted his head. I have had many names, but the one your government recorded was Konstantin Volkov. Sanford's blood ran cold. Volkov is dead. Volkov chuckled softly. No, Henry, I simply stopped pretending to be human. Elias glared. What do you want? Volkov's mask shifted toward the second sentinel. The machine kneels to you because of your blood, not your will, not your strength, not your worth. The sentinel stepped forward, towering over them. Serpent, you have broken the ancient oath. Volkov didn't flinch. The oath was broken long before I was born. He extended his hand. The fog behind him shimmered, revealing an object floating in the center of a containment device. A crystalline sphere, blue light pulsing inside. Elias gasped. The cradle's core. Volkov nodded. With this, I can open every dormant sentinel chamber on the planet. But only with you. Ryan stepped in front of Elias. No, you want to enslave humanity. Volkov's reply was simple. No, I want to replace it. Locke muttered. Yup, classic villain dialogue. Called it. The prophecy of the builders. Volkov raised the core, letting its blue glow spill across the corridor. This relic contains the first memory, the record left by the builders. It tells of a time when Earth was curated. Sanford narrowed his eyes. Curated? Volkov nodded. Life was shaped, pruned, directed. Incorrect species were wiped out. New ones were allowed to evolve. He pointed at Elias. The builders were not human, but they created your bloodline to interface with their machines. Sora whispered, "The heirs." Volkov bowed his head mockingly. Yes, those who are meant to control the network and prevent unworthy civilizations from rising. Elias stared in horror. "We're not unworthy." Volkov stepped closer. "You are. Humans kill their world. They poison oceans. They wage wars for land and metal. They see themselves as the center of existence. But the builders designed the Sentinels to reset civilizations when they become inconvenient." The Sentinel's visor dimmed. "The serpent speaks partial truth." Elias turned to it. "What part is true?" The Sentinel answered, "The Sentinels were made to protect the world, not the species." Elias's heart pounded. "You mean if humans threaten the planet, reset will occur?" Locke whispered, "Guys, I think we're on the wrong team." Volkov lifted the crystalline core. "Elias, don't you see? The builders understood balance. They understood the necessity of purging what must be purged." Ryan snapped. "So your solution is mass extinction?" Volkov shrugged lightly. "Your species had its chance, and it failed." He pointed the core directly at Elias. "With you, I can activate the last gate. Without you, the world will collapse before the Sentinels reboot." Elias felt a sudden calm settle over him. "So your plan is to destroy humanity, then rebuild it?" Volkov nodded. "As the builder intended." Elias tightened his fists. "Well, I'm not helping you." Volkov tilted his head. "I was afraid you'd say that." He raised his hand, and the serpent soldiers lifted their weapons in perfect unison. Crimson laser sights painted Elias's chest. Ryan lunged toward him. "Elias, get down!" Volkov's fingers twitched. He was about to give the order. The first command. Elias didn't think. He reacted. He screamed one word with every ounce of fear and instinct inside him. "Stop!" The corridor trembled. A shockwave of invisible force erupted from Elias's body, riding the resonance he now felt constantly humming in his bones. The serpent soldiers froze mid-motion, locked in place like statues. Volkov staggered backward. What have you done?" The second Sentinel's visor flared bright red. "The Heir has issued a route command." Elias gasped for air. I didn't mean to." Sora whispered, eyes wide. "You connected to the network." Sanford lowered his rifle slowly. "Elias, what else can you do?" The Sentinel knelt beside him, massive, metallic, terrifying. "Anything you command." Volkov recovered, gripping the core tightly. "You don't understand what you're tampering with, boy." Elias raised his hand. "Sentinel." The machine's enormous head lowered. "Yes, Heir." "Destroy their weapons." The Sentinel extended one massive arm. Red light rippled across its palm like a magnetic pulse. Every serpent soldier's weapon exploded into fragments. Locke shouted, "Dude, that was awesome!" Volkov stepped back, voice filled with sudden fear. "Elias, stop! You cannot win this!" Elias stared at him with trembling fury. "Yes, I can!" But Volkov lowered his voice to a whisper. "And you cannot stop the prophecy." Elias's breath hitched. "What prophecy?" Volkov slowly removed his obsidian mask, revealing his face, pale, marked with glowing lines. The same lines Elias had seen on the Sentinel.
Not tattoos. Integration marks. He whispered, "You are the Heir, but I am the Herald." Before anyone could react, Volkov slammed the crystalline core into the ground. The bunker shook violently. A pulse of blue light exploded outward. The Sentinel roared. Sora screamed. Ryan grabbed Elias, and the world went white.
Chapter 13. The Last Gate. The world came back in fragments. Sound first. A low, ringing hum, like a tuning fork the size of a skyscraper. Then light, deep blue, pulsing like a heartbeat. Then pain. Hot, sharp, electric. Elias gasped as his vision snapped into focus. He wasn't in the corridor anymore. He was floating, weightless, suspended inside a vast chamber carved from alien alloy. The walls glowed with shifting symbols, patterns he suddenly understood without knowing how. The core chamber, the heart of the cradle, the last gate. He wasn't alone. Volkov stood across the chamber, body flickering with unstable blue energy. The crystalline core fused into his chest like an additional heart. His voice cracked like breaking stone. Elias Turner, the Heir awakens. Elias's feet touched the ground as gravity returned. The second Sentinel materialized beside him in a cascade of red light, its body reconstructing from particles drawn through the network. It stood tall, taller than before, upgraded, empowered. "Here, I stand with you." Elias's head throbbed with a deep vibration, resonance with the machine beside him. He looked around. Sora, Ryan, Sanford, Block. They were scattered around the chamber, alive but dazed. Volkov raised his hand. A surge of blue lightning burst from his fingers, slamming into the ground inches from Elias. Elias shielded himself instinctively, but the Sentinels stepped in front of him, absorbing the blast. Volkov's voice rose like thunder. "You cannot stop what has begun." The Herald unbound. Volkov's body cracked open with glowing fissures. His skin split, revealing lines of circuitry woven through bone. His eyes, once human, were now swirling galaxies of blue. The last builders left instructions. "This world has failed. Species must be reset. Sentinels must rise." Elias shouted back, "No, I won't let you kill billions of people." Volkov laughed, a hollow, echoing sound. "Humans are parasites, violent, wasteful, chaotic. The Sentinels were not built to protect them." He pointed at Elias. "They were built to obey you, and you were built to decide who lives." Elias refused. "No, that's not who I am." Volkov extended both arms. The chamber trembled. Blue glyphs ignited across the walls. "The last gate is opening." Sora screamed, "Elias! If he completes the activation, the entire global network wakes up." Sanford shouted, "The Sentinels will raise every city on Earth." Ryan grabbed Elias's arm. "Son, please stop him." Elias's breathing steadied. His fear melted away, replaced by something new. Certainty. He stepped forward. "Sentinel,
The machine lowered its head. Yes, here. Prepare for war. The machine rose. Its entire body erupted with crimson fire. Ready. Volkov crossed his arms, spreading blue energy like wings. Then come here. Claim the destiny you were born to fear. The battle begins. Volkov attacked first. A beam of blue energy shot across the chamber, splitting the air like a spear of lightning. The Sentinel intercepted. Metal screeched. Sparks exploded. The ground shattered. Locke yelled, "This is like watching a nuclear reactor fistfight a skyscraper." Sora pulled him behind a fallen pillar. "Stay low!" Sanford fired at Volkov, bullets bending in midair, melting before impact. Volkov roared, "These weapons are beneath the builders." He lifted Sanford off the ground telekinetically and threw him across the chamber. Ryan ran to help him, but Elias stepped forward. The air rippled around him, not from energy, from authority. Sentinel, engage. The Sentinel launched forward with earth-shaking force, slamming into Volkov and dragging him through multiple layers of alloy, ripping into the metal like paper. The explosion shook the entire chamber. Elias didn't hesitate. He sprinted towards them, but the ground erupted. Volkov emerged from a crater, body flickering with blue fire, his voice a mix of human agony and machine fury. "You are strong here, but I am the Herald, made to open what you were made to guard." He raised his hand towards Elias. Blue tendrils of energy shot out like serpents. The Sentinel tackled Elias out of the way, taking the full blast. Metal screamed. Armor shattered. The Sentinel fell to one knee, glowing cracks spreading across its chest. Elias shouted, "Sentinel, are you functional?" The machine rasped. "Yes, here, but damage is severe." Volkov descended from above, floating like a deity of lightning. "This machine kneeled to you, but it was never meant to survive the last gate." He pointed at Elias. "You cannot protect them all. Not your friends, not your father, not even yourself." Elias's eyes burned. "No, I protect everyone." The awakening. The core pulsed. Blue light flared. Volkov roared, "Now! The gate is opening!" The walls split apart, revealing thousands of holographic lines, connections stretching across the planet. The Sentinel network. Elias felt a pull, a link. Something inside him unlocked. A memory that wasn't his. Voices not human. "Hear of the builders. Command." Elias saw visions. Silver cities older than humanity. Towers rising above oceans long vanished. Machines building life. Machines ending life. Civilizations reset again and again. He staggered. These memories were a burden, a curse. Volkov thrust out his arm. "Give in, Elias. Claim your inheritance." Elias clenched his teeth. "No." He raised his hand. The chamber shook. "Sentinel, assist me." The Sentinel rose to its full height, cracked, damaged, but unbroken. "I obey." Elias extended his palm towards the network. And for a moment, the entire world froze. Volkov's eyes widened. No! No! This power belongs to me! Elias's voice carried through the chamber like a shockwave. You want to reset humanity? Then face humanity first.
Final confrontation. Volkov charged. Blue lightning arced. The Sentinel blocked. Elias commanded, "Sentinel, bind him." Chains of red energy erupted from the Sentinel's hands, wrapping around Volkov's body. For a moment, he was restrained. Volkov screamed and shattered the chains. He slammed into the Sentinel, tackling it into the wall. Metal buckled. Sparks exploded. The Sentinel coughed, static. Elias felt the pain through the link. No! He drew on the network. Blue and red light swirled around his arms. Volkov roared, "You cannot wield that power!" Elias raised his hand. "Yes, I can." He unleashed a blast of pure energy. It struck Volkov in the chest, hurling him backwards into the core structure. Screaming, crackling, breaking. Volkov struggled to stand. "This world must end." He summoned a final explosion of energy, a sphere of blue-white light expanding outward. Sora screamed. Ryan shielded Elias. Sanford crawled toward cover. Elias stepped forward. He placed both hands against the widening sphere and pushed back. No more dying, no more resets, no more ancient rules. The Sentinel, broken and sparking, rose one last time. It placed its massive hands beside Elias's. "With you, Heir." The explosion stopped, froze, then reversed. The energy collapsed inward, swallowing Volkov. His voice carried on the last echo. "You cannot escape the destiny of the Builders." Elias whispered, "I'm not trying to." He pushed. Volkov dissolved into particles. The core cracked. The light died. Silence. The heroic ending. Elias collapsed. Ryan caught him. "Son! Elias! Stay with me!" Elias weakly opened his eyes. "It's over, Dad." Sora limped to his side. Locke helped Sanford stand. The chamber lights dimmed. The Sentinel knelt before Elias one final time. Its voice was faint. "Heir, the network is closed. The Sentinels will sleep until the end of time." Elias touched its cracked armor. "Thank you." The Sentinel bowed its head. "Serving you was my purpose." Its body dissolved into red dust. Gone. Sanford removed his helmet, eyes shining. "You saved the world, kid." Ryan grinned through tears. "Bro, you literally beat an alien demigod with Wi-Fi." Sora smiled softly. Ryan squeezed Elias's shoulder. "I'm proud of you, more than anything." Elias stared at the silent core. "Let's go home." The cradle lights faded as the group made their way out, into sunlight, into a world that would never know how close it came to ending. Elias glanced back once. The ancient doors closed forever. The Sentinels slept, and humanity had a future again.